Plus 2 is proud to bring you the 2+2 Pokercast, presented by the Pokerstars VIP Club.
This week on the Pokercast, Joe McKeehen, Shaun Deeb, Ryan Laplante, and Pokerstars Matt with the Pokerstars VIP Club. Now here they are, trying to find a good preschool for baby Hitler? Adam and Terrence!
Welcome to the 2+2 Pokercast, presented by the Pokerstars VIP Club. I am your host, Dave Schwartz, alongside Rosco P. Coltrane on the keyboard, the ones and twos. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Terrence Chan joining us in Hong Kong, just fresh back off the ferry from Macau.
I am very literally fresh off the boat.
Fresh off the boat.
I've been in my apartment for about 3.5 minutes.
Seriously, we timed this perfectly.
Enough to have a coffee. I haven't even used the bathroom yet. If I'm a little thrown off, but yeah,
That's dedication.
I busted out yesterday and booked the early-ish morning ferry back so I could come do the show with you guys because I hear there are happenings in the
poker things
world.
happened. Yes,
poker things happened this. I was hoping that there would be no poker things, but apparently they scheduled this tournament in advance. I didn't know.
Poker things happen every week. This is why we do the show. Unfortunately, we've got a whole bunch of mailbag to get to. You should see how backed up the inbox is, T. It's crazy.
It's just like I actually saw a tweet this morning that was like, it was just a dude, like he's a MMA journalist that I follow on Twitter, and he took a screenshot of his phone, and the little iPhone icon that says you have like this many missed calls and this many unanswered emails, and he's like 17 missed calls and like 37,000 like missed emails or whatever it is. This is like the state of America, and now we're a part of it. Like we don't even have proper jobs, and yet somehow you've got a backed up email inbox.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of the state of America, the joke off the top of the show there, the not so witty intro, was of course in reference to the question that all the Republican candidates seem to be getting asked, and that is, would they go back in time to abort baby Hitler? Of course, they're very anti-abortion, and so somebody decided that.
Well, it's not baby Hitler, then it's fetus Hitler.
Fetus Hitler, yeah. So
I don't
want to be precise here. So it's just and then I'm just shaking my head, thinking like, this is what this debate system is come to. They're asking people if they would go back in time to abort fetus Hitler.
Hey man, they got to kill a year and a half.
Kidding.
This was like the hypotheticals that you would talk about when you were in like 5th grade. Like the future leaders of the world are talking about it. It's like future television shows. So okay, I didn't get the reference.
Oh, you didn't get it. I want one of these candidates to just look at the guy and when he asks him and say, "Are you serious? Like, is this a real question from you?" Like, it's just so bizarre.
Who gets to come up with it? I know I claim complete ignorance on the topic of the American political debate system. So it wasn't a debate question. These are sent in via Twitter or something.
No. This wasn't.
Some human being came up with a process.
It wasn't a debate question. It was a question report. As far as I know. What I've seen, it's just reporters who are at press conferences.
It's some jackass with a media pass. Okay.
It's all jackass. I mean, it's all me. There's different people in the media ask.
Well, it's not like one guy. Levels of jackass, for sure.
Oh my God,
we're
painful.
Media, so.
Painful. So you mentioned you were playing in a poker tournament in Macau. Of course, the Macau was it Macau Millions?
It's the Asia Championship of Poker.
I should know that. We were there last year.
Yes, it's part of the Asia Pacific Poker Tour. So basically, it's not the APPT main event in Macau is some other time of year, March or July or some shit, like some time that I'm not here. But yeah, the Asia Championship of Poker here. It's here. It has a approximately 10K USD buy-in main event. It had a high roller that was like 25K US, and then one that comes out to a super high roller, which is 100K, which will be later in the week. It actually might even be starting today. So a lot of the big superstars that you would expect are in there for the 100K. I talked to Shaun Buchanan, who was mulling over but saying no, I'm probably not going to play it. But ran into Joanne. Actually, sorry, I'm wrong. The super high roller is 250,000
Hong Kong.
No, the regular high roller is 250,000 Hong Kong. So that's like a 30K and then the other, I don't remember what the super high roller is, but anyway, many
One
zeros.
million.
Many zeros.
Where's the many zeros?
It's too much math.
Many zeros.
Did you hear who won? Did you see who won? I don't know if you were over there. The high roller, Fanlert Sukon Thachartnant won the high roller.
Oh yeah, the household name, Fanlert.
Fanlert
Whatever,
Sukon Thachartnant.
I got it. Okay,
You
so
got it.
the high roller. The high roller that already happened was a 250K Hong Kong, which is like a 30K US.
Fanlert
The super high
took
roller
that
is
down.
a 500K Hong Kong,
Okay.
which is 80,000 US, but it has 2 rebuys, up to 2 rebuys, obviously.
Big
so your maximum exposure could be 1.5 million HKD, or approximately 200-ish K.
Gotcha.
American dollars.
All right. It is.
Or not very many Canadian or Euro dollars.
You're not playing. You're not playing the many zeros event. Is what's
I'm not playing that many zeros. I do not have that many zeros to throw at people.
Tough stuff. You busted out of the tournament. I saw it was not the nicest way to bust out of a tournament. The 9-10 Hearts had a little bit of fun with you. Give us the quick rundown.
Yeah, I mean, don't want to bore people with bad beat stories, but David Blumenfield raised
Raptor
under the gun. A couple guys called. I called in the big blind with 6-5 of spades. It came 8-7-4.
That's good for you.
I was pretty happy with 8-7-4. I mean, I guess I would be slightly happier with 7-4-3, but I won't complain. It checked around to a guy who bet out for I don't know, like 3,800 or something. I check raised it to 8,000, and leaving myself about 25K behind. And he called. The turn was a
Queen.
Yeah, okay. It was a Queen of Hearts, and
you were like,
that's good. I like that a lot. Something like that. And I was like, well, there's a pretty good chance that he has a pretty strong hand here, so I will check and hope to get it in. And he doesn't even he spares with the niceties of letting me check raise all, and he just jams for my entire stack. And I'm like, do I still have the nuts?
call.
Yes. Okay, I do. I call. But unfortunately, he has the 10-9 of hearts for the massive redraw. It's like this is like a PLO hand. He just has like a bigger straight draw and a flush draw to go with it, and he hits. And yeah, I think so. Like David Benefield, who was opening, he was like, he didn't even see like that the guy had rivered hearts. I was just like, does the guy have me covered? I'm like, yep. That sucks. And then so that sucks. Obviously, like I'm super pissed. I'm not usually that angry, I guess, or whatever. But that stings a bit.
how many big blinds did you have?
So I started the hand with 40K, and we are playing 500. No, we're playing 600, 1200. So
Okay, there's not too
40-ish.
many. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not insane, but obviously, like getting to a 90K or so stack at that stage of the tournament would feel pretty good. It would be like 1.5x average.
Yeah.
And so that was gutting. Like that sucks to play such a huge pot. So
I'm curious about. Sorry, go ahead.
Pardon me?
I'm curious about your check on the turn. You rep obviously a pretty strong hand there. Check raising in that spot. It seems like it's not often, king 8 or anything.
I could. Yeah, like you're right. It's weird. I'm not really sure how to play in these multi-way pots, but I know in like heads-up pots, I would often like check raise and then give up on the turn, so I can balance that, with the nuts too. I don't know how often I like check raise with not very much and then give up with nothing in a 4-way pot, so it's a little bit weird. But you're right. I mean, it might be a little melts there, but I was just like, well, he's a very strong hand here, right? Like this isn't like this probably isn't him just having 9s or something like that.
Yeah.
So I figured he's strong enough, and even if he does have 9s, like I'm not really scared of anything, right? Like I most of the hands that he won't bet on the turn are drawing dead.
I guess I just see you missing value a lot there.
Yeah, it's possible, but
what do I know?
I guess I don't miss value against the 9-10 hearts.
And you were playing with some superstars, right? I think you tweeted you were sitting next to Ike.
Yeah, I mean, I had in day 2, Ike's table was one of the first to break, so he plopped down right next to me, and I was like, oh, it was always, he sat on my right, so I wasn't upset about it.
Hollywood Haxton.
Haxton.
It's always nice to have conversations with Ike. It's always intelligent, So we talked about a lot going on, although not the least of which was like Amaya's stock price falling to 13 or whatever.
Oh yeah.
yesterday. So we kind of had some thoughts about that and the overall poker community and stuff like that. And I won't get into it too much because private conversations to stay private and that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I had Ike and we had a great time. That table broke, and then I got moved to another table with an empty seat on my left, and it was looking like it was actually like a really pretty good table, a bunch of really active, aggressive Chinese players, and I had position on all of them. And then this white guy on my left sits down, starts speaking Mandarin to me. It's one Mr. David Blumenfield.
He speaks fluent Mandarin?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think he would say that it's fluent, but he speaks Mandarin very well, and he understands most of what's going on at the table. So yeah, he's been playing cash games in Macau for a long time. I think he's a political science degree that he got in Beijing or something like that. And he went to Beijing to study for years. So yeah, he knows his Mandarin. So yeah, definitely like a wolf in sheep's clothing if he just sort of showed up in your poker game and if you were some Chinese guy, some Chinese whale, and you're just talking about your ranges with this guy at your table, it might go badly for you.
That's so great that he can sit in a game and people have no idea that they're talking, and they must talk about.
Well, that's what he
constantly.
does too, right? He's been grinding high stakes cash in Macau for most of the last few years now. I'm not sure exactly how many years.
Right.
But that's mostly what it is. Guys like Roble in the game. He did sort of tell me that a lot of the high stakes cash games, we should have him on the show sometime.
Yeah.
But a lot of the high stakes cash games, they're actually more Westerners than Chinese whales these days in most of the big games.
Yeah.
So he says you get your handful of Chinese regs, but it's not as much as the Western, not as much as you might think for
as
the
it
high
once
stakes
was. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so let's first of all, I want to say it is November 11th. People were asking us to say the date. This is Pokercast 387. Today on our show, we have a new IPWOF inductee. We're going to talk to him in a second. We have the main event champion, Joe McKeehen, who just took down 7
Many zeros.
He took down many zeros at the World Series of Poker November 9 recently, yesterday. We're going to have him on for a quick chat here shortly. Ryan Laplante's going to join us. He followed the final table quite closely, and he's got some opinions on different hands and different topics that arose from that final table. And Matthew Hilger is going to join us. He couldn't join us last week. He was out of town. We've got some questions to ask him about the changes coming up this year for the 2016 Pokerstars VIP Club, the drastic changes that were announced and talked about on this show as well last week. He's going to answer some, hopefully, some pretty tough questions from us, and hopefully we can.
Some listener submitted questions. I imagine that your inbox has some questions for.
You know what? I'm kind of disappointed in the fact that there weren't really not a lot came in.
That is really disappointing and surprising. It's because it seems like everybody just takes to Twitter and takes the 2+2 and just vents their massive outrage, and then we have the guy whose job it is to run the PokerStars VIP Club. Nobody sends you email.
Yeah, that's strange. But I think people, you mentioned it, they take to Twitter. The forums are thousands.
But that's just bitching, right? You can't really I mean, if you're stars of social media or whatever, you should be keeping a tab on what players say about you. But if you have a not entirely direct line, but an almost all the way direct line where, people like us will have a guy on the show every single week or almost every single week and say hey, what would you like us to ask him? And then you don't actually email us. That's kind of sad.
Well, well, hopefully we've got enough in there that will satisfy.
Yeah, I mean the issues aren't there aren't mysteries. Yeah. I don't know if there are that many questions that could have been sent in that we hadn't thought of.
Exactly.
We know what the issues
it's
are.
Apparent.
We talked about for 3 hours last week. So
Indeed.
There's that.
A couple quick things. In the PokerCast forum, we're going to do a Secret Santa this year. You guys down for this? This will be fun. For those who are longtime listeners to the show and posters in the PokerCast forum, head on over there, sign up for the Secret Santa, and I think it's going to be a $20 max. Send off some fun gifts and have a little bit of fun for Christmas. And one last thing, I don't know if you guys noticed this. We've talked about this a lot on the show. The podcast Serial that we all loved, and I think a lot of people listened to. I think it was number 1 in the podcast forever. A judge in Maryland has ordered Adnan Syed's case to be reopened to admit new evidence like the Asia McLean alibi in the library that, if you followed along, you'll know about, and new cell tower data, I think, was the other thing. So keep your eyes open maybe they'll do another follow-up podcast with Serial.
Should have been like season 2 of Serial, being promised for like forever or something like that. But
you can imagine how long that season 1 took them. So I'm guessing they're probably working on that now. So head on over to the PokerCast forum if you're interested in signing up for that Secret Santa as well. All right, should we get to the Internet Poker's Wall of Fame?
Internet Poker.
This week, the Internet Poker... It ends so abruptly, that drop.
Yeah.
It's just quickly. This week, the Internet Poker's Wall of Fame. This inductee is a man from Troy, New York. He hustled his high school buddies by hosting $20 rebuy events. Has over $6 million in lifetime cashes online between PokerStars and Full Tilt, 3 World Championship online poker titles, and 5 Scoop watches, and
many zeros.
Was the number 1 ranked online tournament poker player for several years.
Just playing poker on internet.
He won a World Series of Poker bracelet in the live pokers this year after going 0 for 4 in his first 4 final tables, winning the 10K Pot Limit Hold'em event. He has the distinction of winning the largest satellite in the history of the World Series of Poker when he won $1 million in cash in a satellite for the big one for one drop event a couple of years ago. He played on his accounts Ted's Fish Fry on Full Tilt Poker and Shaun Deeb on Pokerstars. He is the original high-volume grinder. Welcome to your rightful place on our Internet Poker's Wall of Fame, Mr. Shaun Frank Deeb. Shaun, welcome to the Internet Poker's Wall of Fame.
Oh, this is such an honor. Probably the greatest achievement of my poker career.
No question about it.
More than a Pot Limit Hold'em bracelet?
Shots fired. Where's the shots fired drop?
Some of us have to learn win our bracelets in games of skill, and I just choose one that is all about getting aces. So I'm very good at getting aces, as many people have seen.
Yes, indeed, in the right spot. You're a live pro now, Shaun. Do you look back on those internet poker days fondly, or was it really kind of a brutal grind? Maybe it wasn't super enjoyable. I mean, do you just kind of look back and go, yeah, that was a lot of fun?
I just kind of look back and I'm like, I should have had way more money than I ended up having. Whether it was some faking, just punting off live tournaments, like, shit, I won a lot of money online and cash for a lot, but yet I don't know where the hell the money went. But maybe it was all my DJing, maybe it was all my UV blackjack, who knows where it went, but it was a great time. And
a lot better than a lot of the people who made a lot of money over the years, though. I mean, I think that statement is about 95% of everybody who made a bunch of money during the poker boom, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, we were all young and dumb, and we're just wasting money. Like, I just know, Bryce spent $15,000 a year on flights that I just missed. Like, hotels, stay at the nicest hotel, go get a spa, get a massage, do this, do that. Like, I mean, when you don't have responsibilities and you're constantly making a ton of money, you just kind of spew. And, you grow up, you learn. I'm still pretty bad at that travel stuff, but, I enjoy it.
What was your UB blackjack story? Didn't you, run $1 million through or something and end up 30,000 winner or something like that?
I wagered, over a week, $13 million worth of bets at $500 a hand, 3 hands across the board. And I won, 600 bets. And it got to the point where UV staff and higher-ups actually called me and the opening line was, "Are you cheating us?" They were so dumbfounded. And
the irony of UV asking you whether you are cheating them.
It's fantastic.
There's a lot of great additions then, which I know I've said many times, but it's always a good refresher. So they had a meeting when UV and AP merged specifically about me. They had both companies combined. They said, can we cheat him in blackjack to beat him? Why is he not playing on AP? Why is he playing on UB? And then I had emails that were carbon copied to AJ Green and someone else who were claiming they weren't running the company. And my emails helped prove during the scandal days that they were actually running the company for the months they claimed they were gone.
Oh, wow.
So it was crazy the way it all tied in. But yeah, obviously they banned me 3 or 4 different times because they're afraid I was cheating them or their software was automated to just ban you.
Nice.
When you won like X, like I think it was like if you won 15,000 on the table, they'd ban you. I had to email them, unlock it, and then win another 50,000. So I had to system, buy in 5K, leave with 10K, and I could just keep playing.
Crazy.
And you from throwing money at them. That is genius business decisions.
Most underrated online poker player of all time. Underrated.
Underrated, huh? I'm gonna go with Captain Jackpot, Nate Pizzolato. He was really one of the first Yeah, I know. I was just thinking about him the other day. He was one of the first really laggy guys, and I learned a lot of my game from him, and so did many others. So
nice.
That was kind of he was very influential in style, and he like taught people a lot of things they didn't understand yet. And so, yeah, I think he was cutting edge for sure.
Where is he now? Any idea? Were you friends with him?
I think he's in Texas. I don't know. I see some random things on Facebook feed, what's going on with him, but I haven't seen him at a poker tournament in a long time. But he was always a super entertaining character and just a great guy to hang out with wherever tournament stop we were at.
If you were running this Internet Poker's Wall of Fame thing, who would you put up there? Who needs to be up there? Chris Moorman as players? I know you're...
yeah. That was great to put Moorman up above me, you know. I know he's catched some more, but, you know, I think I was, at one point, the most frequented guest on your show. I really expected to be the first pick. It's like, it was me to throw out an easy one, like, you know, Shaun, everyone knows he's there, he's still relevant, he still wins scoops, but no, Chris Moorman, he's number one.
I just want to seem like that I'm unbiased. I don't want to just put my buddies up there right off the top.
Come on, I just won W2 Player of the Year. Isn't that enough? I mean, it's still relevant.
You are the most relevant. All right, so
Wait,
Moorman.
I know that Shaun's short on time, but I could listen to Adam hang himself for like the next
forever.
40 minutes. Right?
It's great.
Like, so can we just, what are you doing? How much can we pay you to
What's your hourly?
My game is really big right now, and two people are stuck in tilted, so and we're five-handed, so very unlikely
we'll let you
get me out of the game.
All right, we'll let you get back to it, but thanks so much spending a few minutes with us, and you're up on the old Wall of Fame now. You can no longer be upset with me.
Yeah, I don't know. What are you going to show for next? I mean, kind of running out of ideas for me to be on the show.
I'm going to do a parenting show.
Hopefully we can come up with something.
I'm going to do a parenting podcast, and you're going to be my first guest.
I could put my wife on. I do not parent. I thought that was pretty clear that she does all the work.
Oh man, you got blasted on the forum thread for talking about babysitting your own
for saying I don't babysit my own
kid.
kid.
Yeah. You got blasted.
I saw. Trust me.
All right, man. Thanks so much. Get back to your game and run good.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Later.
Bye.
Thanks to Shaun. Welcome to the Internet Poker's Wall of Fame. We've got the champ. This is the 2015 World Series of Poker.
The biggest get.
Managed to get the reigning world champion on. I'm very impressed with you going all the way back. I mean, how many years in a row have you had?
Wait, I don't know if we got Martin Jakobsen on right now.
No, we haven't every year for sure. The very first one, I believe, I remember, and it was pretty exciting when we got him, was Jamie Gold, and it was about 18 hours after he won.
That would have been the height of the poker boom too.
Oh yeah,
like every media outlet would have wanted a piece of Jamie Gold at that point, and you guys.
So here's what happens.
You and MJ consistently managed to get it when you think these guys are just inundated with media requests.
Let me tell that story quickly. He had an agent, and somehow or another, I can't remember how I got my hands on his agent's number. But often you'll ask an agent for a client and for an interview, and it'll be like, yeah, sure, next week or next month, and you get blown off nonstop. That's what agents do, or press people do, right? And because he was in Hollywood, I think he was
already an agent himself, wasn't he?
Yeah, so he had somebody doing
the
press.
Double agent.
Press is a double agent, yeah. I emailed this person, and I went out. I remember I was shopping with my wife, and I got a phone call maybe an hour later from emailing the agent saying, yeah, do you want to have Jamie on the show? He can do it. How about in 3 hours from now? And we're like, what? Okay. So we had to figure out a way to scramble. Like, you don't say no when that happens, right? So MJ and I scrambled somehow or another and got that interview, and it was that was a fun one to do because I think we maybe asked him 3 or 4 questions.
I think I remember you started by asking if he inspired Ari Gold.
Did we? Yeah, probably. He also said some amazing, hilarious things like he said he was like Kobe Bryant coming out of high school in poker. I mean, he said some fantastic. And we asked him about his deal with Crispin Lizer.
Lizer, yeah.
He had a 50-50 deal with Crispin because somehow or another he got, I want to say Crispin got him the entry somehow or another, and Jamie's like, okay, I'll split it with you because you got it with me. And then some of the interview was actually used in their court deposition. I remember reading that.
Right, I think I did hear about that. Yeah, and it ended up being a lawsuit over. I think it was because it was 50-50, so it would have been like $6 million. It was like $6 million lawsuit.
Right.
So.
Yeah, but anyway, this year I want to send a special thank you to Remco Rinkema from Poker News. He was nice enough to pass along his Skype his Skype contact for Joe.
I had Ross for like maybe 3 days now, and I'm very worried about his safety going forward.
It's about exactly a year since that happened
in Macau. Indeed, yeah. So thanks to Remco for hooking us up with Joe McKeehen, which was a lot of fun. And where are we? We're going to go and talk to Joe right now. Hey guys, we're joined by the champ. This is awesome. Fresh off his victory at the 2015 World Series of Poker, November 9. Joe McKeehen. Welcome to the Pokercast, Joe.
Thank you.
You move into, I don't know if you know this, 39th on the all-time money list in poker by taking that down. You had the Iverson jersey on for the victory. You have more money than Iverson now, right?
Yeah, I've been told quite a bit of times.
It's not a new joke. All right, I'm working. I got some more. I'll work on them.
Awesome.
Let's talk.
Ever by a guy in an Iverson jersey. I've heard it all.
Best performer? Really? Iverson had some pretty good games. I don't know about that.
Most efficient.
Oh, most efficient. Yeah, no question. I want to ask you about your preparation, the layoff, the 3-month layoff in between getting down to November 9. You hired a coach, right? Calvin Anderson was on your rail. Can you tell us maybe some of the stuff that you and Calvin were working on?
Yeah. I came to his house about 2 weeks ago to kind of prepare, and the one thing I did without him was play a lot to keep myself fresh.
Right.
When I got here, we played one win tournament that I happened to end up winning, which was a great practice. The entire time he stayed and watched me, especially on the final table, kind of like pick stuff up on me that like other people could pick up on, and he kind of let me know about it.
Right.
So I wouldn't be doing it on the stage. Besides that, we looked at a lot of replayers of the past W Coop, a lot of the final tables, and we talked about a lot of spots that could pop up. A lot of spots where like people on the that played didn't necessarily make the correct play, but we discussed a lot of plays. We discussed a lot of pre-flop and post-flop strategy, given the way the stacks were built. It was certainly helpful. We also ran, I think, 2 simulations with a bunch of other kids out here in Las Vegas, and I didn't find them as helpful because I think we had more problems like trying to simulate the other players than we did actually like playing and trying to like learn what to do. It's kind of hard to simulate how someone's going to come in just based on how they play, because 4 months later everyone can change how they play.
Right.
Absolutely. Joe, I wanted to ask, obviously you were a dominating chip leader all the way through. You were able to put a lot of ICM pressure on people. Did you sort of have a separate plan for that if you maintain your dominant stack, or say if somebody, one of the medium stacks doubled up and you had like a co-chip leader situation, or if you lost a big pot, did you sort of play through all those different ICM related scenarios, or was it sort of like, no, I'm going to be the boss of this table, which you very much were clearly.
A lot of the preparation we did ended up involving kind of the worst case scenario for me if things went poorly. If people we deemed as like the biggest threats kind of chipped up a lot and could give us a lot of problems. We switched stacks around a lot.
Did you notice that a lot of guys had changed a lot? I mean, I think the obvious one was Neil Blumenfield, right? I think he came in playing completely different than when he left.
Yeah, we kind of profiled each player individually, and I would say we got maybe 3 of them correct out of the 8 on how they actually ended up playing. So a lot of people changed, and like, I don't know if it's surprising or not, but like a lot of people kind of maybe tightened up based on the fact that we're on the final table, that there was a ton of money at stake. We definitely expected some of the players to come in and start firing, and they really didn't. So that, like, the most important thing, though, if you're going to play a final table of that nature, is obviously being able to adjust on the fly. And I think we had a good grasp of how to do that.
What talked about your image a little bit. A lot of people were talking about the fact that you were staring people down, the angry checks, that kind of stuff. What was your sort of thought process going into the final table with the image you wanted to portray to these guys?
Well, obviously the entire thing is extremely stressful, especially the days leading up, because you're so close to playing, you're so close to this huge stage, you're so close to being on TV and all that stuff, on live TV. I was kind of like clowning around quite a bit just to kind of almost hide what I had inside.
Yeah.
Which like worked for me, so I just kept doing it.
You were more nervous than maybe you gave off.
Yeah, I mean everyone there was obviously a little bit nervous, but I think other people ended up handling it better. I thought I handled it pretty well by the time it was over. All the like angry checks and the folding with faces and stuff was kind of just to like let the other players know, like, hey, you're gonna have to come through me if you want to do anything on this final table. If you make me do this, I might get mad and start coming at you. So don't make me mad. Whether or not it actually worked, I don't know, but results-wise, it did. So that was pretty cool.
I want to take you back a little bit in early July. Maybe the first few days of the tournament, and I imagine it's probably not the first time you played the main event. When you get into that tournament, you don't ever think, hey, I'm going to make it through these 6,000 people in day one. You're just kind of trying to move your way through the minefield, so to speak. Were there some points maybe that you can look back on in those first few days where it could all gone wrong?
I've played 4 main events, and every time I've made at least day 3 with generally an above-average stack. So the first 2 days, I think it's just all about sitting there and playing really tight and kind of using your natural poker ability to maybe read people in certain spots. But for the most part, you don't want to get too out of line. You don't want to get in like super ego wars with, some super young wizards that are playing on your table. You really don't have to do that until later in the tournament. So, like, a lot of the time when I'm just in the beginning of the tournament, I'm telling myself, like, don't do anything dumb. Don't do anything where you're just, like, putting yourself in a really bad spot. Just try to make it nice and easy. And, like, I find that when I do that, like, other people aren't doing that. So therein lies kind of my edge and, like, how I can still build a big stack even though I'm not doing anything super special. I'm just keeping it very basic, which I think is generally the way to go early. So when I'm playing early, I don't really ever feel that way.
You ended day 1 with 33,000. Day 2, 162,000. Day 3 was a big day. You made it. You finished the day with $1 million. 3.1 million at the end of day 4, 4.6 after day 5, so a little bit of a flat day there, but still in really good shape. 12 million after day 6, 63 million after day 7. We'll talk about that in a bit, but really smooth and like really smooth sailing the whole way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually really funny. On day 3, my starting table was me, Mark Herm, and 7 guys that no one really ever heard of.
Yeah.
I ended up busting Mark very early in the day, and he put a tweet out that said Joe's going to end the day as the chip leader with the table he had, and ended up doing that. Wow, and even more ironic, he goes and coaches Josh at the end here.
Were the other guys, as weak as you expected? Because sometimes, obviously, you run into, you talked about not getting in pissing wars with online wizards and people you don't necessarily know. But so it turned out that you had a pretty fantastic table.
Actually, it broke halfway through, but I moved to another table, and I actually did get in a pissing war once or twice, but I won them. So,
that's good.
Yeah, it ended up working out well for me. I actually didn't even make chips on the bubble, which is surprising.
Yeah, I did want to sort of talk about that a little bit because obviously I think, on the strategy side of things, what you say makes a lot of sense. In the first couple of days, you just kind of want to be fairly straightforward and not get into these big battles. But when do you consciously at some point make a decision and say, okay, like now I'm going to start 3-betting this guy light or this guy might be 3-betting me light, so I may be 4-betting him light or calling him, and peeling. Like, when does this start happening where you say, like, okay, maybe all the really easy money is gone. Now I got to really ramp the aggression up and all of that, or is there no conscious decision and you take it by each hand?
For the most part, you're taking it by each hand, but since each day is like 10 hours long, you can be playing with the same 8 guys for 6, 7 of those hours. So after you play with them for a while, you can develop dynamics where you can start re-raising a lot pre-flop and fighting back and showing more resistance because you're a lot more sure on your reads.
There's a lot of talk, Joe, about the amazing spot that you were in with, I want to fast forward a little bit here to 12, 13 people left, where 2 short tables, right, before we got to the November 9. You were in the God seed, as is you referred to, where you were the big stack at the table, and there was a whole bunch of small stacks with all kinds of ICM implications. I want to ask you about that spot, and how kind of quickly did you see that coming, or was it a thing like, oh, wait a second, this is God seed right here?
It actually worked out in game that we had a break very shortly after I won the huge pot to give me all the chips. So I got to talk to a lot of smart people I know, and they said you should start raising a lot. You should go hard. So I kind of did. Like the first hand I got back, I got queen, so I raised and everyone folded, and I showed because I wanted them to know, the break didn't stop me, guys. I'm still getting great cards. I'm going to put a lot of pressure on you, and then I did, and it's very hard for anyone to play back in that spot being so close, knowing how much money they could potentially be losing if they just make a move the time I have it.
Was that what was the interaction with Daniel like there? Because he was at your table. Obviously, he's smart enough to see what's happening along with other players. Was he trying to do anything verbally, kind of talk you down from doing that, or was he just kind of throwing his hands up in the air and that's the way it is?
Maybe he said 1 or 2 things, but I certainly wasn't going to change my strategy because of it. He played his game against me. I think I don't know exactly how he plays before a spot like this because I didn't play with him the entire tournament until the end there. And he played kind of passive-ish, which isn't surprising, but he also made a couple moves. So I think he was he really wanted to make it to the November 9 with a big stack and have a good chance. So I don't think he was so scared of me bullying around as much as it was he was just picking his spots pretty well.
At the other tables, V. Stern was stalling a lot, taking his time to hopefully let you bust everybody and get them to the final table. Were you aware of what was going on over there? Were you surprised that maybe people at your table weren't doing the same, or them calling the clock? Give me your take on that whole situation there.
None of us were aware of it until I think a break came afterwards. And then after the break, we went hand for hand. I think one of the main reasons our table didn't do any stalling was because Daniel didn't do any stalling, and he kind of encouraged everyone to keep playing just out of the spirit of the game. And of course, I was okay with that, seeing all these hands that, I was winning most of them. So maybe if in retrospect, I think a lot of the guys on my table definitely could have taken more time. It might have been to their benefit, but that was already done at that point.
Were there any spots where you were thinking, I probably normally would call here, when a guy shoves on me, but I want to keep this dynamic in play. We don't obviously edit it out coverage, so we don't see all the hands. I'm wondering if that thought was in your mind, I want to make this last as long as I possibly can, even though obviously you want to get to the November 9, but you were in such a great spot, maybe you wanted to keep going.
Yeah, I actually made it, I had a couple close spots, and I always just erred on the side of folding because of the spot I was in. I think I passed up 2 spots I generally call an all-in when I opened, especially given how crazy I was playing.
We were talking about Zv's stalling. He came into the November 9 and was doing quite the same. There was the first, you were getting maybe 12 hands an hour in for the first little while is when we started back up with the November 9. Was that bothering you? What was your sort of mental thinking about that? Were you going to call the clock on this guy? What were you thinking?
I don't feel like he took extra time at all. Yeah, he might have been the slowest player on the table, but he was completely in line given the spot we were in. And any flack he gets because of stalling or whatever is pretty unwarranted because he was just thinking about the spots. He wanted to go through every option. that's the type of player he is. And like, I don't think he ended up making very many moves on the final table, but the way he built his stack before that was, making a lot of moves. So if a player like that is going to think through all of his options, especially on the stage, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
So there was a lot of talk about shot clocks because of the slow play, and so you're saying that that's not necessary. That we're playing the main event of the final table. This is big money, life-changing money for everybody. That take as long as you want type thing, or is shot clock something you could see helping the game, helping the television?
Well, the fact that it's on TV should have absolutely nothing to do with the poker game. The poker game is the poker game, and if they were going to implement a shot clock specifically for television, that would probably end up compromising the integrity of the game, because it's absolutely not fair to the other players to make decisions maybe faster than they want to, given the spot they're in, when all the equity is on the line. If they want to do it like earlier in the tournament, or if they were to do it like consistently through the tournament, that would be one thing. There are definitely people that tank a lot, but if you're deep in a poker tournament and you want to take your time, by all means take your time. As long as you're not taking like 15 minutes every hand, you're fine.
Right. I guess the question is obviously everybody understands the pace of play, when there's millions and millions of dollars on the line, but I guess the fear is that this sort of, trickles down to smaller tournaments, and then, $100 buy-in tournaments and $20 tournaments, and then all of a sudden, this very much harms the game, in the long term. And it's a big question for one guy to just answer, but obviously you're in the limelight, so we'll ask you to answer it. But is it just because this is the main event final table that it's kind of, you feel like it's okay for somebody to take a really long time on each decision, or is this do you think this is fine in every kind of tournament?
Oh no, I absolutely hate tankers. I think it's terrible, especially early in the game. But if you're going to go deep in a tournament, when all the money is on the line, you're certainly entitled to take a couple extra seconds. And don't get me wrong, it was annoying with how long he was taking, but he had every right to do it.
Joe, is that we can just hear something there? Are you sliding the mic or something?
No, I was moving my leg.
Oh, okay, sorry. It was just, I guess it's
on a laptop.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So I want to ask you about your table side sort of reporting setup and what that was like on your rail. Obviously, Calvin was there, but what was your sort of setup for getting reporting on all the different hands? Just kind of go over every hand and get new information.
Yeah, I think my rail was far and away more prepared than the other rails in this spot. We had a guy bring a laptop. We had a couple guys bring the stream up, and each guy wrote every single hand down, every hand that was shown, all the action, and they did it in order, and it was great. I knew exactly what was happening 30 minutes after it happened.
Wow.
All the relevant hands. My rail was absolutely great, and they really helped me in game. Like, I think I left the table a lot more than everyone else did in the middle of the tournament, just to go over there because I knew they were going to have everything ready for me.
And you're saying the other guys didn't?
Sorry, Adam. Did you have any sort of specific people dedicated to say, okay, this guy's watching for tells, or this guy's watching for timing tells, or this guy's kind of analyzing, running numbers and VPIP and kind of stuff, or was it just everybody's part of the team overall?
I don't think we didn't go like super in depth like that, but like if someone picked up a tell, they certainly said something to me. We didn't have a guy like writing down the VPIP numbers or anything, but just being at the table, you have a general idea of how aggressive someone's playing if they're playing a lot of hands. So
I want to get your take on if your behavior at the table, you think like the way you were acting and staring at the guys and the angry checks and stuff. Do you think that, or did you pick up that was bothering anybody? The players at the table, I mean, like, was it making them uncomfortable when you stared at them? Were people, visibly having trouble with that?
If they were, I didn't pick up on it, but maybe they were. I can safely say that I thought the staring was great because I picked up a lot of tells and a lot of hands to help me make a lot of good decisions.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the time I made a move on the table, it was because I picked something up from the player.
Anything specific you can tell us?
Well, Specifically with Max, sometimes the way he opened looked weaker than other times.
Okay.
Just the way he opened, the way he acted, how much time he took, whether he capped his cards with a chip or not. All that stuff kind of factored into the 2 times I ended up re-raising him without a good hand, and he ended up folding both times.
Okay.
Toward the end against Josh heads up, I put in a 4-bet with 7-5 offsuit because the way he re-raised looked a lot weaker than all the ways he was re-raising previously. Just the way he put the chips in the pot.
Interesting. Yeah. I think he had like king deuce off or king 4 off or something that hand.
Yeah, I was very confident in my reads, and of course I had a lot of chips, which helps you be confident in your reads because, you know, even if I do make a wrong one, I'll still have a lot to fall back on.
I want to ask you about one hand, specifically, if that's okay. It's 4-handed, and you're playing a hand against Josh Beckley. You raise on the button to 1.6 with queens at 400, 800. He 3-bets to 4 million out of the big blind with jacks. You take a while and you 4-bet to 10.2s. It was. I want to ask you about the sizing first in that spot. What was did you think about betting or raising larger there because you wanted to kind of make him think maybe you were weak, or what was the thought process behind the 10.2?
Well, he was in second place. He had like 50-something big blinds. So, like, if he was going to peel, I think he would peel pretty much the same range as 10.2 as he would as like 9 million or something. So, if he wanted to peel, I already saw it this one. He was 3-betting me with hands like 8s and 9s. So, I thought he might peel with those hands because he's not really the type of player to get them in pre-flop. Basically, I just wanted to get more money in there. I also wanted to make it a little more enticing for him to jam if he had a hand like ace queen or jacks or 10s. Obviously, I was wrong given his hand. But
is there any part of your read then would any sort of thought before that he might fold a hand like jacks?
Yeah.
No, nothing
shocking, right?
in the past would think he did that. Yeah, I mean, if this was like 4-handed in a tournament on like day one, do I think he's going to fold them? Probably not. It would have been a pretty big ICM blunder for him to go out there, I think, because he had like maybe twice the stack of the other 2 guys. I could be wrong on that, but I think he was pretty comfortably in second compared to third and fourth at the time. So honestly, that you're much better off asking him than asking me about what he thought in that hand, because I have no idea if he ended up like getting a really good read on me, or if he just got a little scared because of the pay jump or whatever, or if he just didn't think this was a good spot and he just decided to let it go.
Yeah, were you surprised when your rail told you had jacks in that spot? It must have been like, wow.
Yeah, fortunately I found out after the day ended.
Yeah, it didn't take too long.
Yeah, I specifically remember when I found out when the day ended, I yelled, "What?" really loud. Yeah, that was pretty intense that he made that fold, but he was correct, and you know he did end up making 2 more spots up because of it.
Your chip domination. I mean, it was so steady all along the way. I know the World Series of Poker doesn't facilitate deals, but I also know that they happen. So I can imagine when we're talking about giant chunks of money that the thought at least goes through some people's mind that maybe we'll make a deal. But I don't imagine that you were ever in a spot where you would probably consider it. Am I right?
No, the only time I even got really asked was heads up, and I said, if you get a little closer, we can talk. I ended up, the payouts you saw are the payouts we got.
Yeah.
Those were made as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, interesting that nobody came to you and asked. You would think at some point maybe somebody who
Oh, they did. They came up heads up and asked me, and I talked to my guys, and we said, you know, if he gets closer, then we'll discuss it. But fortunately, I knocked him out before he ended up like making a lot of chips.
Right. What now? I mean, this obviously changes your financial situation a great deal. That's what we play poker for. It's for money. You got the main event title, everything that comes along with it. But I mean, do you love poker enough to go grind what you were grinding before, or does this kind of change everything altogether?
Well, last year after the monster stack, I kind of stopped playing a lot of what I was playing before. This year, after I made the November 9, I was playing even less. So the trend would say I'd play less. I certainly don't anticipate playing anytime in the very near future. But maybe in 2 weeks that'll change. I mean, I'm going to stay here in Vegas for a few more days, so I'm certainly not going to even like think about what I'm going to do until I get home.
Do you? What's the sponsorship situation like? I know it's a different time for sponsorships now, but has anybody come forward? Do you have an agent working on that kind of stuff? Is it something you're interested in?
Well, I signed the contract with 888
For the full year?
It was for the main event final table and longer depending on how I did.
Ah, okay.
So I will happily be representing them for a couple more months at least.
Nice.
I think what they do is really great. They set me up with a communications agency back in Philadelphia that is just wonderful at getting anything and everything they want. They can get me any interview, anything. You know, they've done this before. 888's been part of the business for a long time.
Sure.
They're very knowledgeable in what they can do. And they seem like a great company for me. I'm very happy that they came to me.
Cool. I know you're right in the middle of it, but for those watching on TV, it was a little bit of a different ending than has happened before. It was almost anticlimactic because it was pretty much obvious the whole way through that, this was going to be your tournament, to lose. It's almost a foregone conclusion. And in the past years, we've had people who, win big pots come from Adelaide. I think last year, Martin Jacobson, of course, coming from 7th place, I believe, starting the final table. So there's this sort of different vibe in the audience, I guess. And people were saying this year was a bit different, that it was almost a foregone conclusion. It was, okay, it's over. He of course he won.
Yeah, well, the more boring it was on TV meant the more success I was having. So I was completely okay with that. For sure, I think this might have been the shortest November 9 final table in history.
I think
it definitely went fast. Like I think last year's had almost twice as many hands. But there were like almost no compelling storylines. The closest compelling storyline was Josh kind of coming from the bottom of the chip counts to kind of run up and get to second. Neil doing what he did. Neil played leaps and bounds better than everyone expected. The break probably benefited him the most. He developed a great strategy. He kind of figured out what his weakness was, and he tried his best to avoid it. There wasn't too much buzz. The 3-day thing I actually liked personally because playing for like 12 hours in a day could just be terrible. Could just drain everybody. I think everybody ended up making more clear decisions because of the 3-day thing. I just think it all worked out really well.
And give me an idea. Was it tough to sleep in those days? Did you go back and just crash? Obviously, it's mentally exhausting. You're playing for life-changing money. How tough was it to get some sleep?
It was very hard to sleep. The first day I slept for like 8 hours, but I got really poor sleep. After that, I think I only got like 4 or 5 hours the day after, and then I got like 6 or 7 the day after. And none of the sleep was actually good. Last night, finally, I got some sleep. I got about 6 to 7 hours, but it was good, solid sleep. And I'm really looking forward to sleeping in the next few days.
Looking forward. Did you go and party? Was it a big night, or just kind of go for dinner and take it easy?
We partied afterwards. The Rio throws a party for the winner, which is really nice. It was very classy. I brought, all my friends, my family, my parents and grandparents. They all had an amazing time. There's a vine going around of my grandma dancing.
That's awesome.
So the Rio, we're good with the Rio again.
Yeah, the Rio's good.
Actually, I ended up not staying at the Rio, which was a change of plans after, I think, as of Saturday before the tournament, because I was just getting miserable there and I was just having a terrible time. Everything was irritating me, so I thought I needed to get in a better environment. So I just left the suite they gave me and went back to my coach's house to sleep in his bed like usual the last 2 weeks. I woke up the next day feeling immediately better.
That's great. I mean, it's so important when you're going to play by far the most important poker of your life. For those who don't know, Joe had some tweets saying that the Rio was not really a great place for him to stay. Stuff doesn't working, not very good customer service. Did anybody kind of reach out? I mean, first of all, it's shocking that the guy who was like, at that point, you're like 40% to be the next champion or something, like whatever it is. And, you're complaining publicly or grieving publicly on Twitter, did anybody come up to you and say try to make this better or anything like that? I mean, obviously it's a really terrible look for them.
Well, all 9 of us got the same thing. The 9 of us that made it. So the fact that I was a big chip leader definitely shouldn't have mattered. Max told me that his shower had problems, as well as my shower, although it was just a little jammed. It took 30 seconds when the guy finally came to fix. They also called me once to make sure everything was fine. But besides that, sometimes it's just not a natural fit. Just like the way the room was lined up, I had a problem with. That's not their fault, obviously. That's my problem. Mm-hmm. But it definitely didn't help. It didn't, hurt me not feeling good there. So, I decided to just, make the decision to come back to my coach's house. He was fine with it. It was just a much better environment for me. And it definitely made me feel a lot better going into this tournament instead of waking up the next day, just not happy.
Joe, you don't seem like the type of guy that wears jewelry, but I'd really like to know about the bracelet because that thing it seems a little excessive.
Well, it definitely won't fit around my wrist. And it doesn't really fit as a bracelet would. It fits kind of more like a triangle around your wrist instead of kind of like a circle. Just because of the big thing. The thing's huge. Lots of jewels, I guess. They put the winning cards inside the bracelet.
Oh,
which is pretty cool. They used the old Modano cards they used during the series. So There's the Ace of Hearts and the 10 of Diamonds inside the bracelet. If I open it up, it's pretty cool.
So they're easily marked, is what you're saying.
Fortunately, we don't see the backs. We only see the fronts.
Ace 10 off now, your favorite. You're going to lose a lot of money from here on out with Ace 10 off. You realize that, right?
No. I wasn't. That doesn't matter to me. Maybe if I'm the next time I play, if I'm on a table, someone, tables Ace of Hearts, 10 of Diamonds, I'll make a comment or something.
Yeah, that's the ice cube now.
It's the ice cube. That's a good way to call it.
If you could get that going.
Joe, thanks so much. Really appreciate your time, and go off and get some sleep. I'm sure you need it.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me, guys. This was fun.
A little different order. We did the interview in the first segment today.
He wouldn't
order your obsession over order.
Wow,
this is
so angry.
We have the champ. Of course, the champ gets in the first segment.
The champ.
He's the champ.
He's very. He's got the poker player mindset. He does not sound excited.
He's tired.
But yeah, I guess he's definitely
tired. And he's done a lot of these, and
sure,
it was awesome to have him on because he's clearly done a lot. But I think hopefully he had a little more enjoyment with us, getting a little deeper than the typical the Las Vegas Review-Journal and whatever mainstream media outlets asking him, what are you gonna do with the money, or were you nervous playing for $7 million?
I asked him that. I asked him if he was nervous.
That's true.
Oh my God,
you're no better than them.
Let's go work for the LVRJ. Yeah. All right. So we're going to talk today. We're going to talk to Ryan Laplante in the second segment. We're going to talk about all the things, some of those things that we did talk about with Joe a little bit more in depth. Some of the issues surrounding the World Series and some of the hands that were played too. Ryan's picked out, I think, 4 hands to discuss, so that should be fun. We're also going to be joined by Matthew Hilger later in the PokerStars segment to talk some more about the VIP club changes for 2016. But first, we are sponsored by CrushLivePoker.com, our buddy Bart Hansen's fantastic live poker training website. If you do play live and you want to get better, head on over there. Tons and tons of he's got a huge library of all kinds of stuff to work on your game with. And each week he sends us in a quick 1 or 2 minute tip that'll help you in the live pokers. This is Bart Hansen here from CrushLivePoker.com, and you're listening to the 2+2 Pokercast presented by the Pokerstars VIP Club. More right after this.
Hello and welcome to another 2+2 Strategy Minute, brought to you by CrushLivePoker.com. I'm Bart Hansen, and this week I want to talk about your opponent's flop bet sizing. One of the easiest things that you can actually pick up in terms of the strength of your opponent's hand is his bet sizing on the flop, especially if he is making a continuation bet after being the pre-flop raiser. It's pretty predictable. You know, when people bet large, they tend to have a stronger hand. And when they bet medium to small, they're a little bit concerned in their hand. I'll give you an example. Say a guy raises with like pocket jacks and the board comes out queen 5-6 with a 2 flush. You know, he doesn't necessarily want to not bet, but if the pot's say 150, he might bet like 60, 75, something like that. Whereas if you notice what he bets with ace, queen, kings, or aces, it's a lot heavier a bet, maybe over 100. So keep that in mind. It's very, very important to pay attention to your opponent's flop bet sizing, because a lot of times, if you're very perceptive, you can actually move them off of their hand. Now let's get back to the Pokercast.
Hey, poker fans, don't forget about the 2plus2.com digital magazine. Each month, a wide array of poker professionals and media write fascinating articles about the game you love. Want to learn about big blind versus small blind hand ranges? How about optimal Jeopardy daily double strategy? Topics like those and many others are covered every month. Head on over to 2plus2.com to see what the magazine has to offer this month. Attention everyone not named Alan Kessler. Have someone you would love to appear on the Pokercast? Have someone you don't want to hear again on the Pokercast? Head on over to the Suggest a Guest thread in the Pokercast forum at 2plus2.com, and Adam will do his best to make you happy. P.S. Chainsaw, you can post too. Hey folks, don't forget to follow the Pokercast crew on Twitter. Adam is at Pokercast Adam, and he'll keep you up to date on things like upcoming guests, listener contests, and all the latest bacon-related food innovations. Follow Ross at PokerCast Ross, and you'll discover new hip-hop bands and learn how to not play Micro Stakes No Limit. Also, give us a like on Facebook, where we post lots of photos and other nonsense.
Under the gun opens to 3x 200 big blinds deep. I defend my big blind with queen jack off with no spades. The flop comes ace king 10 rainbow with 1 spade, and it's a flop that favors the opener's range more than mine, and it's hard for me to check raise any semi-bluff, so I check call his c-bet for deception and to protect my range. The turn is an 8 putting a flush draw out there, and this time I check raise to set it up for a pot-sized river shove. The river is the worst card in the deck, another ace, and I check with the intention of folding to a shove, but he elects not to turn 10-8 into a bluff, even though it's a great candidate with the full house blockers, and I win the pot.
Team Pro Online's Mickey Memento Mori Peterson is a Supernova VIP. This is the 2plus2 Pokercast, presented by the Pokerstars VIP Club.
Hey guys, this is Bart Hansen for CrushLivePoker.com. Whether you're a recreational player who wants to compete at the tables, or you're a professional and you want to increase your win rate, the material that I've produced at CrushLivePoker.com will make you a better poker player. Act now and you can subscribe for free by using the coupon code TPC11. That's TPC for the Pokercast 11 and get your first month free.
Back to the 2plus2 Pokercast, presented by the Pokerstars VIP Club. That was fun. A little interview with the new champ. Joe McKeehen.
Were you surprised at all of like how just sort of honest he was about everything? Well, I found that really refreshing because you asked him, about tells that he picked up, and he was just like, yeah, well, Max Steinberg was doing this, and or you just talked a lot about very, very openly about his strategy, and obviously, he's won all the money now. There's so much not to hide.
He has all the money.
There's still a lot of people in that situation who would say like, I don't really want to talk too much about X or Y or Z. It was great. It was just he seems to be a very, very honest and straight shooter.
Yeah, and then after the interview, he's like, I'm not going to lie, I've never listened to your show before. When does it come out?
Oh, that's awesome. He's
honest, right?
He's not going to pretend he's listened to
exactly.
the show.
All right, so let's get to some of the bigger issues around the World Series of Poker main event final table. And one of the guys that was following along at home, watching it on TV, I'm sure with his friends, was our old buddy Ryan Laplante. Ryan, welcome back to the show, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me on officially. Being able to actually banter with you guys.
I think this is the first time we've actually had Ryan live.
It's not, right, because
it's true. Yeah,
he's had his own poker
recordings of him to this point, and we get to prove that he's a human being and not just like one of the raw voice generated bots.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I just called you old, Ryan. So you've got that distinction as well.
I'm 25 and balding, so I feel over the hill already.
Yeah, well, you can't win the main event. It's all early 20s, so that's out. But oh well.
There's got to be disappointing. How do you feel about never being able to win a main event?
I feel pretty sad, but honestly, I think I could do it for the old guys. Do it at like 26 or 27 or something. Bring it in for you guys.
That's awesome.
We know that you can final table now, at least, because the Neil and Pierre proved that the old guys can still at least make it all the way.
Can't win it, but they can make the final table.
It is really impressive, the fact that, two guys over the age of 60? How old is Blumenfield? Like 62?
Old, yeah.
Yeah, he's like 62 or something like that. Like the 62-year-old and the 70-year-old, both final table, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, no question. All right, let's get to some of the stuff that's going on. Of course, this was on ESPN, 30-minute delay. 3 different days. I can't remember. Was it 3 days last year as well? I don't remember. I remember it being 2.
I thought it was they played down to 3-handed, and then they played.
And they came back.
On day 2. That's the usual format for the last few years. But I kind of like this one. Didn't do as many, not the insanely long days of play. I think it's good for the players. I think it's good for the media because ESPN was probably freaking out at how long some of these had run past, right? Like they were just running until forever, and they have no idea when it's going to stop.
I mean, you can imagine they have a graph of viewership, right? And then if you're doing that, remember they used to do it to Heads Up, where it goes late into the night. You can just see the graph just falling off of viewership, right? So when they do it over 3 days, it's got to be
it's not a Stanley Cup Finals Game 7 overtime where it just gets more dramatic as time goes on. It actually just kind of gets boring, really.
Yeah, indeed. Of course, our old buddy Lon McKeon, also Norman Chad, who kind of likes us. Not sure if he's a buddy, and Antonio, also on commentary. The three gentlemen doing commentary again this year. A lot of people, it's weird, everybody seems to love Lon and Norm, including myself. But Antonio really kind of, there's a wide spectrum of opinions about how Antonio does in the coverage. I think he's fine. I don't know why.
Do you mean the poker pros on Twitter that complain about everything?
I guess. I mean, but
I think that's what it is, right? Because they see Antonio as he's a poker pro. He should know better. But Lon and Norm get a pass on sort of strategy discussion because they're just professional broadcasters or whatever. But maybe there's this sort of sense that Antonio, you play in high stakes tournaments, you should know better than this.
But how are you going to?
I don't really know.
I mean, think of how many individual spots that Antonio has to talk about strategy. Who's going to get every one of them right, Ryan? I mean, what did you think?
Honestly, okay, so I like Antonio. I think he's a really good guy. I have a lot of fun playing poker with him. But honestly, I think his commentary in the final table is pretty subpar. I mean, it's not even just that. Obviously he's supposed to say, fairly basic stuff. But when he says fairly basic stuff, he should at least be correct every time he talks. He shouldn't be getting, really simple things incorrect.
Was he?
Example?
Yeah, he was getting... I'm trying to think of something right off the top of my head. What he was saying about 3-handed short stacks, spots in which they should be shoving instead of calling pre-flop, things like that, where he was just completely wrong. He wasn't even close to correct, saying that they should be doing the entirely wrong thing. And it's not it's super deep stack poker where you could argue that, it shifts a lot and that there are, kind of degrees of gray of what could be correct and what couldn't be correct. For the most part, short stack, short-handed poker, even for final tables, it's pretty black and white as far as certain types of decisions that you can make that can be optimal or could be optimal, and he was just saying things that just couldn't be.
Right.
So, I don't mind him giving, very basic advice. It's for ESPN. He's not supposed to be, overly in-depth or anything like that, but he should at least always be correct when he gives advice.
Interesting take. Okay. They also had a side table with Kara, Daniel, and Helmuth, where they would break down. It was more macro type stuff. It wasn't really like hands, as far as I remember. I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched a good portion of it. We'll get into why later. But so from what I saw from that little side panel with Daniel and Phil was a lot of Phil, hey, who do you think's playing good? And Daniel kind of being more level-headed. But I don't know. What was your take on the side panel there, Ryan?
Honestly, I enjoyed those. While, like, obviously I disagreed a lot with Helmuth, like, anything that Daniel said was correct. Like, anything that he was saying, I completely and entirely agreed with it. And some of Helmuth's stuff was, like, fine. But, you know, at least he wasn't, like, always left field or anything weird like that. They had some decent banter, you know, they had some disagreements, but for the most part, you know, at least it was, like, entertaining and interesting. Even as a professional, I at least got, you know, some level of amusement out of it.
All right.
I listened to a part. I watched much less of this than Adam did. You know, my stomach for 14 hands an hour is very low. But I remember after. I'm not sure if it was after Pierre busted or when he was starting to get short. But it was Helmuth refreshingly saying that actually this guy's played really well. He's just gotten unlucky. Like, and it was almost a very un-Helmuthian thing to say because he is so incredibly like results oriented with a lot of the stuff. So it was actually like really refreshing. I enjoyed those bits that I saw as well.
Let's go to the coaching. And Ryan, you helped us with some of this. Neil Blumenfield was coached by Tom Marchese, Amir Lahavit, and Matt Stout.
He also had a bunch of other people that he was semi-coached with / played a bunch of simulations with, but those were the main three.
That's a pretty strong group he's got there. Amir, of course, who made a final table, is going to have a lot of experience there. Tom, fantastic player, Matt as well. So, and it was interesting because I didn't know that. When I first started watching it, I had this image of Neil in my head, and I watched the first few hours of day one. And Neil was super aggressive early. He picked up a couple of hands, but he also was 3-bet or 4-betting with a 7 off, blind versus blind. I mean, he was doing all kinds of stuff, and it became obvious really quickly, Ryan, that he had some really good coaching.
Yeah, his game was night and day shift. So when I was doing simulations and stuff with Max, in fact, in one of the simulations, I was actually playing as Neil. And Max described Neil as like, you know, mostly tight, straightforward, but will get out of line, and he mostly gets out of lines in spots in which he doesn't really know what he's supposed to do, so he's just hyper-aggressive in those spots, which is why you'll see him be, like, play mostly tight for, like, an hour and a half, and then just blow up in a hand, and that's why.
I think that's actually really... I mean, Ryan, you and I both play, you know, a fair number of live FTTs, and I think that is actually really common for, you know, players of that sort of demographic, right? Like, that
old guys.
You know, they mostly play tight, but then all of a sudden they just blow up and do something completely out of left field. Is your experience similar to that? That you know, if you never played a hand with Neil Blumenfeld and this guy sat down on your table, you might think that, right?
Right, definitely. In fact, honestly, I've run into that a ton live. Spots where like, the old guy just completely and totally like check raise 3x pot jams river on me, and I don't know what to do, but I'm just like, wait, he just doesn't know what he's supposed to do, so then I call with the bluff catcher, and he's just bluffing, and he played tight the entire rest of the time. And
then he's getting up from the table, and everybody's looking at each other going, what just happened here? Like, that guy sat here for 5 hours folding everything.
That's hilarious.
And then that happens. It happens all the time.
That exact same thing happened on Live at the Bike I was watching last night, and Lyman's like, this is the beauty of live poker. This guy hasn't played a hand in 2.5 hours, and now he's just got Queen 10 on a 6-6-4 board, and he's like, I'm going broke with this hand. I can't wait.
So true, right? Ryan, you mentioned Max Steinberg, doing some coaching for him. Talk us through what Max's approach was to coaching.
So I don't know if Max officially had a coach, really. He just did a bunch of simulations, and by simulations I mean, so we had a home game on Stars, and the home game had 20-minute levels, and each person had 21 million starting stack, and it started at like 300k, 600k, or something like that. So then what we did is we got the chip counts pretty close to what the final table was. And then depending on where you were sitting relative to max on the table, that's who you were playing as. So if you were like 3 to his right, you were playing as Zvi. If you were 2 to his left, you were playing as Joe. And then your goal when you play with him is anytime you're in a hand with him, you're supposed to do your best to play similar to, what his notes and whatever he said about that player, like the types of plays that they might make, that kind of stuff. So like I played as Neil, I played as Joe, and I think I played as like Zvi or someone like that. And, honestly, it was a lot of fun. But the main point of doing them is Max would end up having situations that he would run into in which he wouldn't really know what the best option to be in the spot. So then what we'd do is he'd post it in a Facebook group that a bunch of people were in, anyone who's doing the simulations, and then we would look at them in like Hold'em resources and ICMizer and look at the different lines that he's supposed to take, the different equities, and why, and from that build a good game plan going forward. I also know that he did get official coaching from who are the two main poker mindset coaches? There's Tommy Angelo, and I always blank on the second one.
There's Jared Tendler.
Jared Tendler, yes. He got mindset coaching from Jared Tendler.
Nice.
I know that.
Joe, we mentioned with him earlier in the interview, he was coached by Calvin Anderson. And I had a question for him. I didn't get to ask it. And maybe, Ryan, maybe you can answer this. Given that he had such a huge stack going into the final table, does that affect, do you think, who you would pick as coach? Let's say it was you, Ryan, and you were going to go get coaching, and you had 50% of the chips in play or something. Do you go find a guy who's got experience with that, or is it just going to be the guy that you want to get coaching from no matter what stack you have?
I mean, honestly, who I'd get coaching from would shift a little bit based off of what prices I could get. So like I think Calvin Anderson is an amazing choice for a coach because, so not that many people really know this about Calvin. I mean, a lot of online kids, we know this, but Calvin is incredibly good at satellite tournaments, incredibly good at them. I think he's up $1.2 million on stars or something like that, and a good portion of that is from satellite wins.
Wow.
So his ICM understanding is incredibly good. Just sick good. So I would want a guy who is incredibly good at ICM as a big stack. Your biggest edge comes from applying correct amounts of ICM pressure on people and getting a little out of line, but not blowing up in spot. So understanding the different times in which you can apply a lot of pressure, why you can apply a lot of pressure, and how you're going to maximize your edge in doing so. So I definitely want a guy like Cal. Otherwise, honestly, I'd want whoever I thought the best poker player in the world would be. So I might want someone like Mike McDonald, Scott Seaver, Igor Kurganov, any of the super legit end bosses that everyone goes, okay, so who would be one of the best players in Super High Roller? I'd want one of those guys. But the issue with them is that, they're incredibly expensive, and they might want 3% or 5%, which is an absurd amount to pay.
Yeah.
So, it would come down to who I thought would be the best value. If I could get Calvin Anderson for, $1,000 an hour or something like that, and get in 50 to 100 hours with them, sure, yeah, I would do something like that and just work on the super in-depth ICM stuff. But honestly, I'd want someone like Cal even if I was a short stack, because again, all the final table stuff comes down to is just how well do you understand ICM and how well do you leverage it based off of your stack size relative to everyone else at the table, and that's how you make the most money at final tables.
Canuli was coached and maybe staked by Jeff Gross, Brian Rast, Antonio as well. They're all choice center type guys. That's their thing. I think Canuli went as well. So it was kind of weird. I was listening to Antonio talk about Canuli at the beginning, and he didn't he's pretended almost like he didn't know the guy. It was this weird thing, a weird dynamic when it was pretty obvious. I think that people had been talking about the fact that he was involved with the choice center as well.
Mm-hmm.
Beckley was staked by Matt Glantz. Matt, there's a lot of talk on Twitter today about Matt having all the money again. So you would think that Matt probably helped out getting some coaching for Beckley as well. But I'm not sure that it worked. But we'll get to some of that later. There's some interesting plays that he made. So the big topic was how painfully slow the poker was. In the first 3 hours, they played 34 hands. That's 10 hands, 11 hands. I mean, that's inexcusable, really. It's terrible television. The first 5 hours they played.
It's in orbit an hour. Like
it's an orbit an hour.
Like if you're on a full table, we're barely getting more than an orbit. There's like one guy who paid the big blind twice.
I mean, yes, it's really slow, but I think part of it is obviously because of like TV coverage and those types of things. Obviously when they're doing these things, it might take like 30 seconds to do a flop and like those types of things, and also commercials and blah, blah, blah. But like, I mean, obviously they played too slow even with all that stuff. Maybe instead of, 34 hands in the first 3 hours, it should be like, like 50 hands or 60 hands.
Yeah, which is a significant, significantly more than 34. And the other thing is, I mean, it wasn't like there was a lot of hands that were going to showdown or getting to the river. It was all sort of no flop hands. It was, and I talked about it, or we talked about it with Joe earlier. Zvi Stern was one of the culprits, one of the main culprits. When it was on him, even pre-flop, he was sitting there taking his time and then folding the 7-deuce off to balance his time that he was taking when he had a good hand.
There's basically like a 12-hour period where Zvi Stern is the most hated man in poker.
And it was really unfortunate.
He just took over the throne from Howard Lederer and Russ Hamilton.
And you know what? ESPN, you know how they do those vignettes with the players and they talk to them. Zvi seemed like an awesome guy, like a really, really nice guy he came across in the interview that I saw. And I'm just thinking, wow, it's so hard to cheer for you, even though you seem like a good dude. And I always cheer for the nice guys. But man, it was just painful.
Yes, it was slow, and yes, he probably should have taken a little bit less time on some of his decisions. But I don't blame him really.
Oh no, for sure. Yeah, let's get to that.
And it's he's not a professional, and if he is, he's still playing for $7.5 million. If he wants to take 30 seconds on a semi-easy decision just to make sure, that's fine. I mean, obviously he was doing it a lot too much, but like I understand why he was. I don't think he was doing anything quote unquote wrong or unethical or anything like that. And I honestly, when he was taking, so he sped up on day 2. He sped up a lot on day 2.
He did, yeah.
He was taking like half the time or a third of the time on day 2 compared to day 1. And honestly, I thought day 2 he played worse than he did day 1.
Wow. So you're saying that it might have something to do with it? Well,
yeah.
I mean,
like maybe he played worse because he's worse shorthanded or there's more pressure or whatever. But he definitely played worse on day 2.
But the sort of thought is that a lot of it's not like we're upset about decisions or tanking when there's decisions to be made. But it seemed, and we never got to see, unfortunately, the whole cards of the stuff that he just folds pre-flop without putting money in the pot. But it seemed like the action was just on him an inordinate number of times, and nobody picks up that many middle pairs and suited connectors and like offsuit aces and like difficult decisions. Like you have to think there's a lot of like 8-3 off in that he's sitting there with, right? Like I mean, we don't know for sure, but it feels
for
like
sure there is. Yeah.
Maybe he was thinking about 3-betting the 3-deuce off. You don't know.
Yeah. Well, I guess that did happen.
Later we'll talk about that hand for sure. But Ryan brings up an excellent point. He tilted me because it was him doing it. But it's a very good point that he isn't doing anything that's against the rules, unethical, etc. And that's not his fault. It's the rules' fault, right? I mean, it's the fault of the setup of the final table. So Terrence and I have been talking for a long, long time about shot clocks, and both have been advocates of it and Terrence more than me, but certainly we've both agreed on that for a long time and talking about it.
But shot clocks wouldn't even help, pre-flop tanking or whatever, because you can't make a shot clock that really solves that problem.
You can't.
Chess clock, but
there's a lot of talk about that on Chess Clock and on 2+2 and on Twitter. People are saying this has got to stop. There needs to be shot clocks immediately, and influential people. This wasn't just a few people. This was everybody saying it. So that got me to be thinking, okay, so everybody wants a shot clock. Well, how is that going to work? And when you and I had talked about it before, Terrence, and it was just sort of this esoteric thought. I didn't really give it much consideration other than I want it, but how would it work in real terms? Are we having a shot clock simply for the final table, or are we having a shot clock for every hand played in a 6,000 person tournament? Two completely different things. And then I'm thinking,
well, the problem, I mean, in theory, it could easily be done. I mean, it's been done at the Aussie Millions for a long time, like 3 years in a row now or something like that. It's not a problem because the Crown has really well-trained dealers. The problem with the World Series is that you have a lot of shitty dealers who are literally, it's their first time dealing poker. I'm not even just like exaggerating. It's like I've had dealers push in and say like, "Hey, this is my first day," like and I'm like, "Okay, cool." And so that's
meanwhile
just,
it's pot limit Omaha high-low split.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's PLOA. Well, he gets 1/6. No, yeah, it's that's the real problem, right? Like, I mean, I think that's the issue, So in the Aussie Millions, they just have an egg timer or whatever, normal countdown timer that you hold in your hand, and it's not really a problem. But yeah, I mean, that's not really viable when you've got like 800 tables and you've got like 500 dealers who aren't good enough at running the game by itself. That's the real problem with this. So it has to be done technologically, right? Like some engineer out there has to be able to like create a idiot-proof some sort of display for the dealer where something happens, or I'm not an engineer, but I've thought about different things.
There's actually a way you could do it. You'd have to do it with the table setup itself, where you have digital cards, kind of what GPI is doing. But that'd be such a money sink that why would they do it?
Exactly. Like there could be a button that you make your bet or you make your check and then you press the button or something like that. Or you could have like you said, like digital cards, and the thing has to be able to sense whether you have cards and the action is on you. And it would even need to know whether the action is on you, right? Because if you and I both have cards, the sensor itself is not going to know who the action's on. It just but a person can see that I have chips in front of me and you don't, and therefore the action's on you. So
it just seems such a difficult jump to make to bring that in and have it work properly and have it work efficiently and evenly through every table in the tournament, when it seems like empowering the tournament directors with rules, the TDA getting together and making some sort of adjustment to the rules about how giving tournament directors power to give penalties
and
to
Savage
people who are doing
this, right? Like Savage said, if some guy in one of my tournaments was taking just like a really long time before pre-flop decision, at some point I'm going to go over and look at his cards when he does this, right? Which I think tournament directors have absolutely the right to do, right? Like if a guy is like tanked 6 hands in a row, I think it's okay for the tournament directors to say like, okay, I'm going to look at that hand and see if you have some kind of legitimate decision. Especially if like, okay, Ryan suggests that, what if you wanted to make a 3-bet light because some guy wiggled his eyebrows, and you don't want to take that option away from somebody. What if there's 2 all-ins in front of you? And then you have the 9-5 offsuit, right? Like if there's 2 all-ins in front of you, you weren't thinking about 4-bet shoving light and trying to win the side pot, that I think they're you're right that there has to be some empowerment by the tournament directors, but it seems like they're kind of unwilling to do that. I mean, especially Ryan talked about and Joe talked about when we talked with him about how they're playing for such big money and people have the right to make the decision. I think guys put yourself in Jack Effel's spot, and it's really tough to say
in the current rules environment it's impossible. I don't think that he can,
because the rule doesn't exist.
Right.
I mean, I'm not sure about the TDA rule whether there's some sort of anti-stalling language is in
there. Well,
clear.
It's not clear enough. Clearly, I mean, otherwise people would be using it. If there's clear, precise rules about what to do with, then you can go at the tournament director and say, hey, you should be enforcing this. But currently, as it stands, it doesn't seem like it's something that they want to do. Unfortunately, it's something that you need to do. I was watching this with my buddies who this would be the only poker they watched the entire year. Right. And they inside of a half an hour, they couldn't stand it. It was was tilting them to no end. So
like who would watch this if you're not incredibly hardcore? You have to be so hardcore to watch this.
Yeah.
The unedited version,
Yeah,
definitely.
And those are the guys that want to watch it. You want this guy to watch it, get interested in playing, and they just are shaking their head like this is.
Well, you even get people. I mean, we've all had this experience of, okay, I'm going to go play in Vegas at the World Series of Poker, and then like your uncle who doesn't know anything about poker is like, I'll go watch, and you're like, no, don't, because
right, please don't,
your fucking mind, and like this is after you pass through the convention halls of dudes throwing battery chargers at you. You're gonna walk up to a rail. I'm gonna be like 40 feet away from you. You're not gonna be able to see my table barely. You're gonna see like the corner of my head, and then you're gonna sit there and watch a bunch of dudes stare at each other for like 30 seconds at a time and take turns really slowly putting chips in the pot. You do not want to do this. And then so these people will show up to the Penn and Teller Theater thinking like, oh, I'm gonna watch somebody win $8 million. It's gonna be so awesome, all this kind of stuff. And then like they're gonna get there and they're gonna be like, this is fucking awful. Like why did I think this was a good idea?
Hey, I enjoyed watching the final table in person.
Yeah, but you're a hard. You are absolutely hard.
True.
Well, I think the difference too, you got to remember that
you had somebody, and you were emotionally
you had a sweat.
Yeah, and I think that makes a huge difference. If I'm emotionally invested in somebody, then absolutely I'll sit there. I mean, I'll be on my phone the entire 98% of the time, but I'll be there. It's definitely way more fun when you've got somebody to rail.
Oh yeah.
But what I wanted to say was, I think the fact that it was live changes. We're watching edited television or edited coverage for so many days of the main event. Then you come to this final table, and it's shown live where you can't edit out all this stuff. Remember, we didn't see much as V's stalling before. We heard about it because of the final two tables with Joe, but we didn't see it. And then when we come to the live coverage, here all of a sudden you see it in all its glory. And I wonder if maybe it's time, if we can't solve that problem and make poker interesting, because right now it's not interesting. I'll tell you that right now to people. If we can't make it interesting, maybe it's time to go back to edited coverage of the final table instead of showing it live. I don't know. Maybe that's the solution.
Honestly, I think for ESPN they should do an edited final table, and then they should just like stream on Twitch or WSOP.com the unedited.
Yeah, it's a product that's clearly made for internet TV of some variety, more than regular TV.
Indeed. All right, let's talk about taxes. Russ Fox, the tax accountant to many poker players of the world, including myself. He's fantastic. If you ever need help with poker taxes at all, go Google Russ Fox. He wrote his yearly blog on the tax implications of the November 9 participants and their respective tax liabilities. Only one player at the final table tee, Pierre Noville, from Belgium, will not be paying any income tax on his winnings. Belgium has a tax treaty with the U.S.
the guy who least needs all of them.
Yeah. Oh, really? Yeah, exactly. He gets to keep it all. He's smart enough. That just shows
that's
you.
True. You don't get rich by being dumb.
Almost 25 million won by the final table participants. The IRS is going to collect 8.4 million of that 25 million.
Ooh.
More than McKeon won, more than Caesars collected in rake, going to the IRS down the hole. The
Ouch.
Big one, yeah. After
just
all,
from the final table too.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Never mind all the other prizes. And then, of course, people have to pay taxes in their respective countries. Buderoni in Italy. Taxes end up being taken out a little bit more than 10 million, 43% of the final table payouts. I think it's time we all move to Belgium where it's tax free.
Well, that's what I mean. You remember like the Peter Eastgate thing. He moved to the UK like immediately as soon as he made the final table. These guys should have. Joe McKeehen should have moved to Belgium and just chilled with Pierre and said like, "Can I rent your basement?" or whatever.
Indeed. Let's go through some of the bust outs.
TaxableTalk.com. You never mentioned where you can find Russell.
Oh, I said
yeah. TaxableTalk.com is where you can read the full breakdown of how much. He's got it broken down to like the state level. He's got like 102,000.
He's an accountant. They do things precisely.
New York Department of Taxation Finance will get 102,000 out of this, and the North Wales Borough gets $76,833. It's odd. Russ is nothing
awesome.
if not thorough.
Indeed.
Like you said, he's an accountant.
9 guys went into the final table trying to win that bracelet. On hand 2, we had our first bust out. It was 20 minutes into the coverage, but we had our first bust out. Hand 2, Joe McKeehen open shoves on the button. It's folded to him. And Patrick Chan calls in the small blind. Pretty easy call there with King Queen. I think Joe's probably opening with a wide range. And I think Joe had Ace 4 off, I want to say he had.
Yeah, something like that.
And Patrick does not improve. He's out in the second hand, out in 9th place for $1 million that he had already gotten, I'm sure, earlier in July. Waits 4 months to come back and play 2 hands. In his exit interview, he did say that. He said, Joe's shoving any 2 there, pretty easy call. Terrence, you're still the second most famous Chan in poker. You dodged a bullet there.
Yeah, faded the P-Chan poker going. Are you that guy who was on ESPN? No, not that guy.
Not me,
Wait,
no.
are you the guy from the Rounder? No, I'm not that
Next bust out was,
can I say something about the first hand?
Sure.
So in a normal tournament, that probably isn't really a call. But the way that the final table payouts were set up is that
so flat,
ninth
right?
place was $1 million.
Yeah.
And then eighth place was like
$1,097,000.
Yeah, right. It wasn't even 1.1. Like sixth place was only 1.4 million.
Right.
And then the jump from sixth to fifth was 500K. So essentially, the difference in like percentage relative to what you've already made between like ninth and sixth is very little. And then the way the stacks were set up is that there were two fairly short stacks, Chan and someone else. Then there were like four Chan and Budaroni. And then there were, I think, 4 stacks that were kind of medium-ish, and then 2 slightly bigger stacks, and then Joe. I might have missed someone, or maybe it was 5 stacks that were somewhat medium-ish. Yeah, maybe 5 stacks that were somewhat medium-ish. So like Chan and Budaroni were so were so far below everyone else that Chan really has like almost no ICM pressure there. And while Joe isn't shoving any 2 cards into the 2 shorties, I mean the 2 shorties with like 16 big blinds each or whatever, he's probably shoving like 70% of hands because he expects them both to just play so tight. And King Queen has like 60% there. So maybe in a normal tournament where the payout isn't quite as flat, he's supposed to find a fold with King Queen and small blind. But in that payout structure, even though they're playing for so much money, I think the King Queen is a snap call.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a snap call too, and I'm actually surprised to say that you think you've done a lot more work on this stuff than I have. That you think with a regular payout that it's not. If Joe's shoving 60% of his hands, then King Queen should have like a tremendously high chip EV. Against that distribution, and was Budaroni in the big blind?
Yeah, Budaroni was in the big blind.
Okay, so I mean, Joe might even be shoving more than 60% there to be like
2 shorties.
Especially if people are going to be folding things like King Queen.
In a normal structure, it's not a snap call. It's close, like it's marginal. Okay. And whether it is a call exactly depends on exactly how short everyone else is, exactly how how much chips the chip leader has and everyone else has. Also, honestly, what matters to some degree is like how much money you're playing for. Like, obviously in the final table, they're playing for all the money, but due to how flat it was, it's a ridiculously profitable call, so you just get it in. However, if it had like a normal payout structure, let's say it went like 1.15 million, 1.3 million, 1.6 million, 2.1 million or something like that, and top was a little bit flatter, then honestly I would say that it's a fold. Maybe it might be like plus dollar EV to get it in, but you might not be making a lot compared to the amount of money that you're playing for, so you pass slightly on that edge just because of how much it is relative to what you're risking.
And they also know that Joe knows they've got coaching. They're coming back, and they've been told by their coaches that it is flatter. So maybe Joe's range there is a little bit tighter than they think it normally would be. So that's probably got something to play.
Still gives you a lot of insight into just how awesome of a position he's in. If if people can basically fold King Queen, if we're even having a discussion about whether you should fold King Queen button versus small blind, it just goes to show what a dream spot it was for him.
Well, in that tournament, it's a snap call, but people could consider it in like a normal structure.
Hand 35 was the next bust out. Joe McKeehen again opens on the button with Ace King. Federico Budaroni moves all in for his last 2.4 million in the small blind with Ace Jack. He nursed his stack pretty hard for whatever it was, 33 hands. Didn't play almost any hand. I don't
we
remember.
don't see what he got. He folded.
We don't get to see that. But still, it's I guess when you're the short. It's hard to say. I guess if he's dealt with the deuce 7 every hand, then maybe. But it looked like he was trying to ladder. He ends up getting a 90K jump, finishes in 8th place in the tournament. Hand 72 is the next bust out. Joe McKeehen again raises to 1.2 in middle position with Jack 6 suited, and Pierre Noville moves all in for 3 million. He was whittled down to 3 million with Ace Jack suited. Joe's priced in there, ends up calling and sucks out, makes a flush. Pierre Noville finishes in 7th place for 1.2 million. Another small little jump there from basically 200,000 from 9th to 7th. in a tournament with that big of a first prize. It's pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Given that, Ryan, did you watch Pierre? What was your sort of take on his play? He looked pretty tight as well.
Honestly, I think overall he played fairly well. He was definitely on the tighter side, but based off of how everyone else was playing, that's perfectly fine. Especially as, let's see here, I think he started the final table like 4th in chips, I want to say, something like that, 4th or 5th. He was like near the upper mid of the pack, and based off of like, you know, what Blumenfield was doing, Zavi was doing, Joe's doing, like he didn't really have any reasons to like get crazy or get way out of line or do anything silly. And his style is tight, aggressive, occasionally do some fun stuff, and it works perfectly for him. And especially in a tournament like the main with 2-hour levels, you know, I thought he played the final table fine for the most part. The reason why he got that short was because he got somewhat coolered by Blumenfield. Noville had Ace King on King Queen 4, and Blumenfield had Pocket 4s.
Oh, and he'd Blumenfield had 3-bet him pre, I think, didn't he?
Yeah, might have been a 3-bet pot. I don't remember exactly, but like the way the hand played out, Noville might have been able to lose like one less bet on it because it was like a turn queen, river flush gets there, and he still paid off like a medium-sized river bet. I mean, obviously it's still like kind of a close spot, and Blumenfield was playing kind of crazy, so I didn't like really blame him. I thought overall he played like pretty well, and that he was making good decisions. Got a little bit unfortunate in that ace-king hand, and that's how he got so short.
Pierre ends up in 7th. They do stop play in that spot now for getting down to 6-handed. They're going to come back for the second day of the final table. 6 hours of play, 72 hands. Painful. Yeah, it's tough. So they come back the next day, hand 74. 2 hands later, or just 2 hands later, Thomas Canuli raises to $1.4 million from under the gun. He's got aces. Max Steinberg puts them all in from the big blind with 10s. The flop is Jack 10-6, and Canuli goes home in 6th for $1.4 million. Ryan, I wanted to get your take on that shove by Max there with the 10s. Pretty standard?
How deep was Canuli in this hand?
I think 1.4, I think it was like 10 or 10 or 11 million, I think it went to. Total.
If it's like over 20 big blinds, even though they're 6-handed, I definitely just peel. If it's like, 12, 13, 14, 15, I think the shove is perfectly fine. Anything above 15, it can be fairly player dependent, as, you don't know if he's like raise calling 6s there or not. I doubt he is, but like if he is doing something like raise calling 6s, and obviously jamming 10s is like a really easy decision, but he might just like be open shoving the low to mid pocket pairs and only raise getting it in with incredibly strong hands. So
according to card players reporting, 15 big blinds was the effective shove.
I mean, I don't mind the jam at 15. I think
I agree.
You could argue that you could flat versus some player types, but probably not versus Canuli.
You were there. You were live in person. That must have been pretty exciting when the 10 spiked off.
Well, I was watching it on TV.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were there.
No. I was there in person last year and the year before.
Gotcha.
Yeah, not this year though. I really wanted to be there this year. I mean, it would have been a lot of fun being able to real Max in person, but I'm still in the land of the free, Canada, in fact, playing a tournament right now, deep in something because of you guys doing this interview. So, I was
He's getting Pokercast karma in real time.
In real time, Pokercast karma, yeah. So
I am.
Canuli ends up in 6th, wins $1.4 million, as I mentioned. He took it well. I mean, that's pretty tough. When you
he
go
handled it very well.
Yeah.
I was really impressed by that.
You get 30. I mean, you got aces against 10s for 30 big blinds at the final table. Who knows what can happen from that spot, right? Mm-hmm. And he wasn't throwing himself in the ground. His press conference after was like, "Hey, that's poker."
Stealth Monk would have handled it better.
It's the game I love, yeah. And I thought that was really impressive for a guy. He's not very old. He hasn't been through a lot of the stuff that you end up going through in life, and for him to have that perspective, I thought was pretty awesome. What did you think of his play, Ryan?
From what I saw, he didn't really make any mistakes. From what I saw, final table, he didn't really do anything very interesting, didn't really get out of line. I barely saw him really make any, tough or difficult decisions. I thought pre-final table that he did some somewhat questionable stuff, but I'm sure Rast, Jeff Gross, and Esfandiari helped them with his game. So I'm sure he would have played the final table a lot better than he played pre-final table. And what I saw was good, but he went out with Steinberg getting lucky against him, so we weren't really able to see exactly how much he had developed as a player.
That was hand 74. We'll get all the way to hand 121 for our next bust out. Svi Stern moves all in with ace-jack, and Neil Blumenfield moves all in behind him with ace-king. And Stern is out in 5th place for $1.9 million, and the entire poker community goes the golf clap around the world. As if people are watching it, we're like, okay, he's gone.
Well, but this is the point when Ryan pointed out. I think
he was playing faster, but
right?
he developed a reputation for being the villain, so to speak. I guess. Ryan, what did you think about Svi's play?
I thought overall that he played really well. Honestly, if I were to rank the final table, I would say Joe played the best, Svi played the second best, and Blumenfield played the third best, just based off of the way that they used their stacks, the decisions that they made overall. I mean, I think Svi and Blumenfield both made mistakes in hands, but for the most part that they played really, really well. I was most impressed with Blumenfield. The stuff that he was doing, you can tell that he worked incredibly hard in his game. He got a lot better. He played his heart out. And while he didn't play perfectly, he played in a manner that set himself to make a lot of money when it worked, which I was really impressed with. So I thought Svi played really well as well. I didn't really see him make any big mistakes, which is why I'm ranking him slightly below Joe. I saw him do one thing. I think he shoved 9-10 suited in a spot that he shouldn't have, but that was about it. It wasn't a bad play or anything. It was just he could have done something else.
He shoved 15 big blinds in the small blind or something, wasn't it?
It was
with
22 big blinds.
Oh, was it that many?
Or 20 big blinds. It was at 15 it's perfectly fine. Yeah. And it was into Blumenfield as well, I believe. So it was into a player who you could argue that limping is going to be a lot better or raise folding is going to be a lot better than jamming. Obviously, jamming's profitable even at 20 bigs. It's definitely a profitable play. So he didn't make an unprofitable decision. It's just versus that opponent, he could have maybe done something else. You can argue him doing other things. So overall, I really liked how Svi played. I thought he made a lot of good decisions, and it's too bad he went out in 5th place.
That's hand 121. Svi is out. Hand 143. Joe McKeehen raises to $2 million from under the gun with ace queen off. Max Steinberg moves all in from the big blind with $16.5 million total with ace jack, and Max is out in 4th for $2.6 million. General thoughts on Max's play?
So I'm friends with Max. I think he's an amazing guy. I do honestly believe that he worked hard leading up to the final table. I know that he did. He put in a lot of time and effort, but I thought his day one play was perfectly fine. He might have made a couple small errors, but day two I thought he made some pretty big errors. Most specifically, which we can discuss this hand later, or discuss it now, whatever.
Yeah, we do
I'm
later.
Perfectly fine with either. His 3-2 off 3-bet. I thought that play was a very large mistake, and I was very surprised to see it.
Okay, yeah, we'll talk about that.
Most of the time, when you start a sentence with the 3 deuce offhand, there's a big mistake involved.
There's an issue.
That's just one of those things where very, very rarely does a sentence goes, "I think you played that 3 deuce offhand perfect."
There were also some other things that he did as well, some minor mistakes across the board. Pre-final table, he played so well. I was so impressed by it. I didn't see anything that was in the edited broadcast. I didn't see him do anything that I disagreed with,
especially for a guy
all.
Who had not been playing a hell of a lot of poker.
Right. I was so impressed by it. And then final table, I don't know what happened, what changed. Maybe the pressure got to him. Maybe he was just tired. I don't know how well he was sleeping. I have no idea. But he definitely didn't play as well as he did pre-final table.
The day is over at that point. They're down to 3. They're off to bed. They come back the next day. Hand 172. Remember, Max went out on 143. This is hand 172. Joe McKeehen raises to $2 million from the button, and Josh Beckley re-raises with queens. Is that right? Oh, no, sorry. Josh Beckley raises to $2 million from the button. Joe McKeehen with queens re-raises to 5.4 from the small blind. Neil Blumenfield immediately moves all in for $12 million total, in the big blind with 2s. And Josh Beckley folds. Of course, Joe's going to call there. And Neil Blumenfield is out in third place. That seems like a pretty bad spot to shove with deuces, but I'm not an MTT guy. Your thoughts, guys?
Yeah, it's not the best. In fact, okay, if you want to understand exactly how bad it is, look at Tom Marchese's face when he sees what hand Blumenfield does it with. It's just like the most devastated, pained look in his eyes, and like my heart went out to Marchese when I saw his face. Like it's straight up a punt, and I don't get why he did it. Like I thought, like leading up to that hand, that he was playing great, that he was doing a lot of cool stuff. Sure, he ran a bluff, which we'll discuss later on, that I disliked the sizings, but like I liked his idea behind doing it. I liked the spot that he chose. I liked why he did it. I just didn't like quite his his implementation of it. So like I liked how he played overall, but this hand is just a punt. It really is.
What do you think's acceptable there to have? Like eights, ace queen?
Let's see here. So 12 million total. The other stacks were like.
I mean, I feel like if it's
was...
sevens, we're debating this a little bit, but nobody's calling it a punt if it's sevens. Really, it's just like
right.
Oh, well, that's a bit light.
Yeah, it's light, but like you could be like, well, maybe Beckley's or Joe is 3-betting light there often enough. Yeah, it's probably fine-ish. You know, like I would always get in like 9s there, and then whether I get in like 8s, 7s, 6s would a lot of times also honestly just comes down to how short is Beckley. Like the shorter Beckley is, the tighter I get it in. So if Beckley has like 40 million, then yeah, I'm never folding 9s. But if Beckley has like 12 million, then I'm like snap folding 9s. So it shifts a little bit, but obviously deuces is just can't ever be good.
Hand 184, it's all over. Josh Beckley, he open shoves for his last 20 million with 4s. McKeon snap calls with ace-10 off. The flop comes with a 10, and we have ourselves a new champion. Beckley's play, Ryan, a lot of people were saying he made a whole bunch of mistakes.
Yeah, Beckley made a lot of small to medium-sized mistakes, and one fairly large mistake, which, again, we can go over this hand more in details later on, the infamous Jack's hand. We can discuss why what he did probably is nowhere near the best decision, and what he should have done or could have done. I don't think he necessarily played badly. I mean, his first live cash in a poker tournament was a year ago. So, like, for someone whose first live cash in a poker tournament was a year ago, he played incredibly well. But, that being said, yes, he made a lot of mistakes. But honestly, I thought that the way in which he handled himself at the final table was amazing. He, handled himself with class. It seemed like he'd been there 100 times before. He just handled himself very, very well. And you can tell that he's just a really nice and good guy. That being said, yeah, he made some mistakes, but, it's not the end of the world. He's got 4.4 million to wipe away his tears, and, yeah, honestly, everyone's happy for him,
Sure.
But pretty much everyone agrees that he made some mistakes, and it's not the end of the world.
Fair enough. All right, let's get to some of the hands. We've got 4 hands to break down. The first one is one you alluded to a few minutes ago. This is Max Steinberg. They're 4-handed. Max has 23 million. Neil has 31 million. Neil raises under the gun with queens to 1.9 million at 400,000, 800,000. Folds to Max in the big blind, who 3-bets 2-3 off to 5 million. Neil just flats with the queens. The flop is 10-8-3, 2 diamonds.
We should.
Yeah, sure. Let's go street by street.
Discuss it street by street.
Okay.
So I know why Max 3-bet this.
Oh, good.
He 3-bet this because the way that Neil was playing pre-final table and spot is that he would occasionally open somewhat light. He was capable of opening somewhat light, especially in cutoff button, and you could occasionally apply pressure on him and he wouldn't get out of line. So you could 3-bet him here and he might fold a lot. But the way that he was playing at the final table was entirely different. He's not really the player archetype at the final table, at least, that I would want to 3-bet him with a no equity hand. Yes, I think we can 3-bet him somewhat light here, especially as most people will correctly perceive that when you 3-bet out of the big blind, you're very, very strong. Most people, when they 3-bet out of the big blind, they have either the nuts or quote unquote the stuff that they're always getting in or almost always getting in, and then they have weaker air type hands that can flop some type of equity. So I like Max's idea behind why he wanted to 3-bet Neil light tier, but based off of how he was playing at the final table, I don't think that the new Neil was the type of person he should be 3-betting super light tier. And B, even if I am ever going to 3-bet Neil fairly light tier, I at least want a hand like Ace-4 offsuit or like King-7 suited. A hand that's like I could consider peeling with, but because of who it's versus in the situation, 3-betting is going to be incredibly profitable, so I decided to do that instead.
Okay, so the flop comes 10-8-3, 2 diamonds. Max now, after 3-betting out of the big blind, now checks. Neil bets $4 million, and Max thinks and folds. It's a tough spot there. I mean, it's pretty much a fold there.
Here, this is just goes to exactly what Ryan's talking about. Why
when
you
you're just going to
with 3 deuce.
You give up, right?
You actually hit like a top 30% flop here, and
right.
You check and fold. You know, that's why you have some equity when you make these 3-bets with. You know, people say 3-betting with air. They don't really mean air most of the time, but Max actually has the nut low, so I actually had, but yeah, that's why you want to have some equity. I couldn't agree more with what you said.
Yeah, and even here, he smashes a flop, quote unquote, and he can't do anything but check fold.
Right.
He has to check fold this board.
Once Neil flats the 3-bet, he's just checking most flops, right? Folding most flops. All right, let's talk to about the next hand. This is Neil Blumenfield. Ryan, you've got a hand on this. Why don't we go street by street and you read it off for us?
Okay, so it is right. So they're now 3-handed. It's 500. It's 500K, 1 million. Joe has 122 million. Neil has 35 million. Joe's in the small blind and completes King 10 off. I like this complete a lot. I think it's a great decision. Neil in the big blind has Queen 8 offsuit and raises to 3 million. So Queen 8 off, it's a strong enough hand versus Joe's complete range that you don't want to raise this. If he had a hand like Queen Deuce off, yeah, I kind of like it because you're just trying to get Joe to fold a lot of hands that flop very well versus Queen 8. But Queen 8 actually does pretty well versus Joe's complete range. So I don't necessarily mind the raise because at least Queen 8, has some equity, and Neil might be somewhat uncomfortable playing it post flop, but I think it's a little bit too strong / not quite strong enough to raise it.
Do you think there's an argument to be made for raising the option just so Joe decides to give him a walk occasionally? Because they're going to be 3-handed, presumably the thought is for a while. And so
right.
you want to be able to pick up those walks when you're the big blind, and so having a higher option raise percentage might be valuable.
I like that. I like that a lot. So I don't think the Queen 8 raise is bad at all. I think it's perfectly fine. Joe obviously calls with the King 10. That's super mandatory.
Yeah.
The flop is 3 of clubs, 6 of clubs, 10 of diamonds. Joe has the King of Spades with the 10 of clubs. So Joe completely and totally demolishes this board, and the flop has a flush draw. Joe checks to Neil, and Neil bets 2.2 million into 6 million. So I like this bet by Neil, as it can set up multiple streets. He can rep the stronger parts of his range. When he raised pre-flop, he's obviously repping that he has a much stronger range. 1 second. Excuse me. That he has a much stronger range. So if Neil wants to run a 2 or 3 street bluff, this isn't that bad of a board to do it on, since Joe should rarely have smashed it. However, he's pretty unlucky that Joe smashed it. Neil's bet itself, though, the sizing, I think is a little too small, as Joe's going to call with his entire range that has any equity on this. As he'll be laying Joe almost 4-1 in his money, 3.7-1 in his money or something like that.
Right.
Joe obviously
Ace high is not folding.
Right, yeah, ace high is never folding here, or rarely folding here. So when Joe calls, the turn card is kind of a card for Neil to rep, as it's a 7 of diamonds. This card doesn't hit Neil at all, and it smashes Joe's continuing range. Joe can very easily have 6-7. He can have hands like 10-8 and 10-9 that picked up equity. He can have ace-x of diamonds. He can have 8-9, 5-4. There are tons of hands that Joe can have that smashes this, and there are very few that Neil can have that smashes this. However, Neil decides to follow through and continue on his bluff, which I don't mind the idea of it, but once again, he bets way too small. So when Joe checks to him, Neil bets 3.5 million into 10.5 million. If Neil wants to represent, a hand like an overpair or like ace 10 or anything like that, he should be betting a lot larger, as he should be rightfully scared of straight draws, flush draws, combo draws, and he should be trying to go for value versus any time Joe has a mid-pair type hand. So when he bets 3.5 million, he's not really reliably representing anything. Right. He really isn't. He's just I would honestly, when he bets this small, I would always assume that he has a draw of some kind or a weak type of hand, and he's trying to get to the river and get to showdown and maybe occasionally run bluffs and stuff. So if I'm Joe, I always think that he's light, and I'm almost never folding the river.
Yeah. I'll also add another thing. You mentioned pre-flop that maybe his hand is kind of too good to raise. I'll suggest here that maybe his hand is maybe too much equity to actually bet here, because he does have the gut shot, and a queen is likely good a very large portion of time, and 8 is even good sometimes. So he's got a decent amount of equity here. He doesn't need to just bluff because he doesn't,
well,
he's got enough.
If you're going to run a multi-street bluff, I actually don't mind doing it with a hand like this. You want to generally bet turns with hands that you have some amount of equity with that aren't by themselves very strong. So like this type of hand is perfectly fine to want to run a multi-street bluff on, since he has a decent amount of outs, and then he can win two different ways. He can win by bluffing the river, or he can win by hitting 7 or more outs. So I think it's a fine idea, but again, he doesn't quite pull the trigger correctly on it, betting only 3.5 million to 10.5 million.
On what is now a very dry board, too.
Yes, on a very wet board. He's not telling a believable story that he has a very strong value hand. He just isn't, which is the issue. So when the river is a 5 of clubs, this card is actually really good for Neil, because the way that the hand is played out, Neil could legitimately have a flush draw that got there. He was telling this, in Joe's eyes, Neil is saying, hey, I'm weak, I'm on a draw of some kind. So then when Joe sees a 5 of clubs, he should legitimately be worried about it.
So now the board is 3, 6, 10, 7, 5. The flush makes it 1 card straight to a 4 as well.
Right. So, Neil could legitimately have a flush. You'd have a hand like ace 4. There are a couple different hands that Neil could legitimately have that are strong value hands now. And Neil decides to pull the trigger when Joe checks to him. However, he only bet 7 million into 17 million, which I think is a huge mistake. If Joe ever has any amount of showdown, which Joe should either have some type of, pair that might have a fairly difficult decision, or Joe just got there anyways. And it's hard for Joe to have gotten there anyways, just because there aren't that many flush draw combos that Joe can have. And when Neil sizes it so large pre-flop, Joe probably isn't limp calling 4-5 off. He might limp call 4-5 suited, but there aren't that many 4s in his range. And while sure he can have flushes, it's most likely that Joe has a hand like ace 6 or 9-10 or a hand like king 10. So when Neil decides to bet this river, I like it. But instead of betting 7 million into 17 million, he should bet 12 million or 13 million to 17 million. If he does that, I would assume that Joe is probably calling. He's definitely calling less than 50% of the time. And when you bet 13 million into 17, it only needs to work 40% of the time to be profitable. And it's definitely going to be profitable.
And especially if Neil did have something like the nut flush here, you do get the sense that he would bet more than 7 million, right? And it's, it's bad sort of not just in the sense that, okay, we've, it's you're not going to make him fold these hands, but a lot of the times I feel like if you have just whatever ace deuce of clubs or something like that, then a lot of people will be going big for value here, right?
Yes, definitely. That they would try to be representing as though they're bluffing or just have the nuts and put your opponent to a polarized decision, and then you get them to bluff catch more often.
Right. All right, so let's move on. What hand did you want to talk about next, Ryan?
So I think the most important / interesting hand that we can discuss is Josh Beckley's 3-bet fold with jacks, 4-handed.
One everybody's talking about.
Yeah, the one that everyone's talking about. So the situation is it's 400K, 800K. Joe McKeon's on the button, raises to 1.6 million, folds to Josh in the big blind, and Josh has pocket jacks. So the stack sizes are Josh has 42 million, Joe has 95 million, Neil has 31 million, and Max has 23 million. Josh, being second in chips with, everyone fairly close to him, he has a lot of ICM pressure on him. So when he decides to do something like 3-bet a hand like jacks, he should be doing it with intention of not folding, which means that when he decides to 3-bet jacks, he just really shouldn't be, because jacks just isn't going to be strong enough versus the types of hands that Joe is going to be 4-betting for value. Joe 4-bet for value range should only be queens plus, and that's it. Like literally just queens plus, nothing else. So because Joe's value bet range is that strong, you can't really value 3-bet a hand like jacks and get it in. And then the other downside is that also when you 3-bet this, like when Joe 4-bet bluffs you, you still hate your life. You're like, either way, you're unhappy and you're gross. Like you feel so sick with yourself when you 3-bet a hand like jacks here, because either when Joe 4-bets you, the majority of the time he's messing with you. The majority of the time, Joe should be liked here. Like there are only 18 total combos of queens, kings, and aces. That's it. 18 total combos.
Right.
However, the types of hands that Joe's going to be 4-bet bluffing you with are like ace deuce, like king 10 offsuit, like 9-6 suited. There are tons and tons and tons of hands that Joe can have. I was actually looking at it in Stove, and Joe can like 4-bet bluff here very comfortably with like 20% of hands.
Wow.
And 20% of hands, that's like 200 plus combos of total hands that Joe could be bluffing here with, and he can only have 18 combos of value. So even if Joe decides to be a nit and bluff here 30% of the time, that means Joe has 18 value combos and 60 bluff combos.
Wow.
Which means he's bluffing here 75% of the time.
Which now means you have to get it in with the jacks.
Well, not get it in. You're supposed to just peel and be very unhappy.
Well, that's what I mean. But if you have 3-bet and open the door to being 4-bet, but
by all those bluffs,
right?
By all those bluffs, then now you've once you've taken the line, now you've got to go with it.
Right. You have to peel, be very unhappy, and you put yourself in this spot. So Beckley made two huge mistakes here. I think you can't argue that they're good decisions. I know that a couple people have been very strongly, and I get why they are. It's because they're friends with Josh, and they want to defend their friend. That's great. It's fine. You should be able to do that. However, you should also be able to look at this situation from an outside perspective. And if you look at the situation, it's if Beckley's 3-betting hands here, he should always have an easy decision. He should either have a very clear, this is a value hand. Joe will be getting in with a lot worse than me. I can comfortably get this in and then go with it. Or it should be, I'm snap folding. Like, there shouldn't be an in-between. Jacks is an in-between based off of the types of hands that Joe's going to 4-bet Josh here with. There are player types where I would 3-bet jacks here, and then I would snap get it in versus them. I would never consider doing anything but fist pumping it in. However, based off the dynamics, based off the way that Josh has been playing, based on the way that Joe has been playing, I think that this is a very clear pre-flop call. Josh, however, decides to 3-bet it, realizes, I think after he 3-bets, that he made a big error in 3-betting, and then decides to follow it up by making another big error and then folding.
Right.
And then he looks like a genius because Joe happened to have the 25% or less percent of the time in which he had Josh beat.
Right.
Real quick, I want to ask you, from a chip, from if there's no ICM at all, and we're talking purely chip EV, how would you feel about just getting it in?
I mean, obviously, jamming is always going to be hyper profitable chip equity wise. It's incredibly profitable chip equity wise.
5-bet jamming,
is incredibly profitable. However, the issue again comes down to, when Joe calls, you have 18% equity. Nothing else. You have 18% equity. Occasionally, Joe might have ace king suited.
Right. I was going to say.
I think Joe's value range is maybe he can only have he can only have. Let's see here. one combo of pocket jacks. So he can have one combo of jacks, which he probably doesn't even do it always with. So he has like a third of a combo of jacks. Then he has like maybe one combo of ace-king suited, and then he has queens plus. So you essentially have like 20% equity versus the range you get it in with. However, he's bluffing like 75% or more of the time. So it has to be incredibly profitable chip equity-wise. However, due to ICM, you're kind of just in a spot where when you jam, well, sure, you're making a profitable decision. You know, you can instead just call, make a very profitable decision, and then based off of what you think he's 3-bet bluffing with, play very cautiously post-flop. And sure, you're going to get bluffed off, but this is why you don't 3-bet here.
Okay, fair enough. We ran out of time. We did have 4 hands. The other hand we'll hopefully maybe get to next time. We're talking some strategy. Really appreciate you joining us, Ryan, talking about the final table and all those hands and all the different issues, breaking it down. And I want everybody to know about your podcast. Talk about your podcast.
Thanks for having me on. So some friends and I have been doing a podcast called The Muck. We haven't done it the past couple of weeks since I've been incredibly busy. They've both been incredibly busy. But when I'm back in Vegas, we'll be doing it again every single week. So what it is, it's the 3 of us doing a poker news style show and occasionally having like interviews. So each week we'll look at over the past like weeks of interesting things that have happened, and then we'll give our 3 different perspectives on it. So I'm the pro perspective. Then the 2 of them, they both have a lot of experience doing things like podcasts, Magic the Gathering related news shows. In fact, one of the people, Ruben Bressler, he actually does a weekly radio show with Mark Hoke in Las Vegas that is poker related. So both of them have a ton of experience doing these types of shows. I don't, but we're getting a really good, comfortable rapper going. Our last episode was by far best. We're all comfortable. We're having a lot of fun with it. It's definitely getting better and better as each episode goes on, and I expect it to keep improving. And it's because of the two of them that I'm improving so much. We've been having a lot of fun with it. And honestly, so what we're trying to do is we want it to be something that's kind of like SportsCenter-esque, where it's, you know, it's us giving our opinions to some degree on things, but mostly focusing on the facts of what's happening and having banter between the 3 of us. So it's somewhat us discussing things, but also us focusing on what's going on, why is it happening, how does it affect you as a poker player, and how to go forward with it. And while we haven't had like the best reception, we're getting some viewers, people are enjoying it, but, I definitely want to see it grow. But also, I'm fine just having fun with it. In fact, our first interview ever was Mr. Adam here.
Yeah, I think the reason nobody's watching is because your interview selection is pretty weak.
That's how you started. That's how you're going to start.
You need to sharpen your selection. Fair enough. Thanks so much, Ryan. Really appreciate it. People can get it on, where can they get it? iTunes as well?
So right now we just have it on YouTube, and the best way to find our YouTube is to look us up on Twitter, The Muck Podcast. You can find our YouTube. In the future, we will eventually be switching to an audio version as well. So if you don't like the visual, we'll have audio and visual and have it be something that's easy to listen to, easy to digest, and something that poker grinders should be really interested in.
Fair enough. Thanks so much, Ryan. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. I'll talk to you guys later.
All right, T, that's going to wrap up this segment. We went over a ton of stuff there. We've got mailbag. We've
Excellent.
got.
I'll always love to talk the super in-depth strat with
we're
just so openly willing to talk about it again. So
we're going to throw people for a loop this week with all this strat talk. This is good. After the break, we're going to talk to Matthew Hilger from PokerStars about the new changes for the VIP program for 2016. We've got mailbag and some other stuff to get to. Ross Report. You're listening to the 2+2 Pokercast presented by the PokerStars VIP Club. More right after this.
This week on the Under the Gun podcast, poker great Phil Galfond joins David Tuckman to recap the WSOP final table.
As I was watching it, I actually said to my wife, I said this is a good 3-bet, and I said
by the way, Baker said the same exact thing to his wife.
Of all situations, the main event final table is the situation where it's like most acceptable to deviate from GTO.
Check out the Under the Gun podcast live every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on the Tuck on Sports channel on Twitch, or head over to Crush Live Poker and listen to the free podcast.
Hey, it's Mike from the 2+2 store and ProfessionalPoker.com. 2+2 is pleased to announce the release of their most anticipated book in ages, Applications of No Limit Hold'em, a guide to understanding theoretical sound poker by Matthew Jonda. This book will give you the ability to create the bet sizings and ranges which will beat the better players. The theory in this book is not designed to be complex or abstract, but rather it's intended to be applied immediately, producing better overall results. Many confusing concepts such as overbetting, balancing multiple bet sizing ranges, donk betting, and check raising as a pre-flop raiser are crucial to a player's strategy, despite few players implementing them or talking about them. And after reading this book, you should be able to not only conceptually understand these ideas, but also know how to begin incorporating them into your game, and thereby successfully compete against tough opponents. And at the 2+2 store, we accept all credit cards, plus PayPal and NetTeller. Hi guys, it's Mike from ProfessionalPoker.com and the 2+2 store with some great news for our PokerStars players. You can now use your frequent player points to purchase gift cards available from ProfessionalPoker.com. These same cards will also work at the 2+2 store. The gift cards come in increments of $25 and $50, and you can apply multiple gift cards per order. Now you can get the books, videos, and ebooks from all the major publishers using just your FPPs. So check out the gift card section of the PokerStars FPP store and pick up the poker training material you've had your eye on for a while at the 2+2 store and ProfessionalPoker.com.
Okay, people, most of the kittens have perished. There are a few left you can save, though, and here's how to do it. Get involved with the Pokercast by emailing your questions, suggestions for the show, or even record a sound clip. Adam will be using the best ones on the air. Well, let's face it, probably the worst ones as well. I can see you there at your computer. Send an email right now. Totally disagree with one of Adam's takes last week? Send an email. Love last week's interview? Email. Want to know how much cash Adam has on him right now? Email. Pokercast at 2plus2.com is the address. Ship the funny to Adam today.
At the 8-handed table, UTG min raises to 8K with 32 big blind effective. Cutoff calls with 70 big blinds, and I call with 10-9 of spades on the button with a stack of 400K. Both blinds fold. Flop comes Jack 8-6 rainbow with 1 spade. UTG bets 14K, cutoff calls, and I overcall. The turn is the ace of spade, giving me a flush draw. UTG keeps on betting, 32K this time. Cutoff calls again, and I raise to 90K. After tanking for a few minutes, UTG lets it go. Cutoff takes even longer before folding too.
Team Pro Online's Marc-Andre French Dog Ladouceur is a Supernova Elite VIP. This is the 2+2 Pokercast, presented by the Pokerstars VIP Club.
To the 2+2 Pokercast, presented by the Pokerstars VIP Club. That was a fun segment, right? We get into all that main event stuff.
Loved getting to be able to geek out with Ryan about hands that I didn't even necessarily watch, but happily he did, so we can talk about them in a strategic context.
And check out his podcast. It's a lot of fun too.
Yeah, it should be.
All right. Last week we talked about the PokerStars VIP changes for 2016.
The big story before a certain poker tournament came along and rolled into town.
Yeah, and still people are talking about it. We didn't get a chance to talk to Matthew, our friend at PokerStars last week, Matthew Hilger. He was out of town on the day we were recording, but we have him today. Matthew, welcome to the Pokercast.
Hi guys, how are you guys doing?
All good. Let's get into some of the stuff. You ready to go on the barbecue and answer some of these questions, Matthew?
Yes. Right. Let's do this.
All right. I'm sure it's been a fun couple weeks around
rip
there.
It off all like a Band-Aid.
Yeah. Exactly. Yes.
First, Matthew, obviously drastic changes to the Pokerstars VIP program for 2016. This is a big movement away from traditionally how Stars has encouraged people to play high volume for a long time, both with the VIP program, the higher rewards as you played more and more, and the various incentives, advertising, team online. So this is a big change for Stars. This isn't you saying, okay, we want everybody playing as high volume, and you're going to get these rewards back now. It's really a movement away from that, isn't it?
Yes, very much so. I mean, it's yes, it's a big deal. I think that's why the entire poker community is talking about it. Essentially, we've been looking at this, as everybody knows, for quite some time, and essentially we think the current model is outdated. It worked when there was an influx of new players and when the games weren't so hard and when third party wasn't so advanced. But if you look at, what's happening now is we spend a lot of money to try to bring new players to the games, and then they get here and they arrive in an extremely advanced predatory environment where players are, taking every single edge, whether it's through advanced play or through third party software. And these new players, they have very little chance for success. So this really is a comprehensive strategy to try to change the landscape, the online poker landscape. We really have two objectives. We want to improve the retention of the players. So when they get here, we want it to be a friendly environment where they have a chance at success. And once we have that environment, then we want to try to bring as many players as we can to that environment. And hopefully long term, these changes will, be good for both Pokerstars and players. But I understand, why there's a lot of players upset because, unfortunately there are players that will be impacted in this transition.
So the third-party software stuff in the predatory environment, I think most poker players get that. It's certainly not the thing that Stars is taking the most flack about this week. It's more the sort of reduction in benefits, and you alluded to this in the model, and actually David Bazoff said earlier, like he thinks the way I think he put it was something like you've got a bunch of break-even players making money, and it's not a sustainable model, and it's not a good player experience. But the sort of thought is that, well, you're taking away people's actual ability to make a living, and people who's people have come to rely on this source of income. And so if you don't have those guys around, we're okay with not having the third-party software to make it an even bigger advantage, but should people be able to make a living playing at Pokerstars, I guess is the question.
Yes. I mean, that's the simple question. I mean, poker should be a winnable game, and we fully expect it to be that. If the games are unbeatable, then we'll take a look longer term. We'll be evaluating the trends, and then we'll make price adjustments. But if you look at the current landscape, and when we talk about poker ecology, some of the game types, if you take like hyper sit and go, the only players that can be successful in hyper sit and goes are the players who earn 1 million VPPs a year. I mean, you have to be able to play ridiculous volumes in order to be successful. So,
but Matthew, isn't that due to high rake? Because the rake is really high?
We want game types to be we want players to be able to have a chance to be successful at all game types. So by reducing rewards, we're going to narrow the difference between high volume players and low volume players in terms of the rake. Now, what will happen? Some players say, okay, well, those games are going to become unbeatable now because the rake's too high. Well, that may be the case. And another possibility is that the high volume players, the professional players, leave those games. And then instead of one fun player at each hyper, then now there's two players sitting there. And then the win rate increases for everybody who's playing those games. Now, if that doesn't happen, we're going to be following the trends. We're going to be looking, and if there needs to be price adjustments in the longer term, we'll do that. But the first step is to is to narrow that gap. Right now, having a gap of 7% rake back for some players and 68% rake back for other players, it's just too wide of a gap.
So the message from Stars seems to be that these changes are going to benefit all players. And you can imagine some of the high-volume players that we were talking about, this is going to affect them the most. They're trying to figure out how that is going to happen, if it's going to benefit for all players. How does Stars see all these changes, the big reductions to those high-volume players? How does Stars see that as helping Supernova Elites?
Well, obviously, the players who are most impacted, the Supernova Elites, I'm not going to sit here and try to make an argument that they're going to benefit from these changes, at least not in the short term. Obviously, players' livelihoods are being impacted. Some of these players are likely going to quit the game. Some players are going to struggle to adapt to the new conditions, and we understand that. It's unfortunate. But we feel these changes need to be made, and some people are going to suffer in the transition. Now, hopefully, some of these players will adapt and still be successful. A few years ago, we made similar changes to our French VIP club rewards, reducing rewards by over 30%, and we saw that a year later, many of those players were still successful. So there's no doubt that the high volume players, these supernovas, you just can't make an argument that these benefit them in the short term. But I do think that these changes are beneficial for the long term future of poker in general, and so better for poker players overall in the long term. But in the context of high volume players, I'm not going to sit here and make that argument.
Yeah, Matthew, I definitely want to separate the sort of the long term and the short term. I think that there's definitely the belief that Stars is looking out, for the long term with respect to figuring out the poker ecology, and we can make discussions as to whether these are good or bad things. But a lot of the focus has definitely been on what's happening in 2016. The fact that these announcements were just made, we're almost to the end of 2015. People have been grinding hard at Supernova Elite. That seems to be the big source. Even though Supernova Elite, there's not that many of them, people have sort of rallied to this cause and said, like, hey, you let them grind it out for the whole year and you've pulled the rug out on them. There's an implied agreement that if they worked hard in 2015 that they would get a certain amount of benefits for 2016. Can you talk about the communication and with your Supernova Elites and just in general about the 2016 Supernova Elite changes?
I think players understand in general that rewards programs are always subject to change, and we explain this pretty clearly on the website. I think the website, from our perspective, it explains rewards that players earned in 2015. So what a player would earn as a first-time Supernova in 2015 and what a player earns in 2015 as a continuing Supernova. Now, these changes aren't much different than things that we've done in the past, except this time the players are more vocal because it's the magnitude of the change. A few years ago, we announced changes from Delta Weight contributed, and that announcement was like in late December. I think it was almost like right before New Year's. Last year, we announced the removal of the $5,200 W-Coup ticket. That was, I think, in October. So we've set a precedent for changes, and we've been warning players since 2014 that significant changes were coming. We've been getting emails for months now from Supernova Elites asking, when are you going to announce the changes so that we can make plans for next year? We have you guys know we have a Supernova Elite thread at 2+2, and people were saying, when are you announcing the changes? We need to make plans. So I don't think it's any secret that the changes were coming. We sent a mailer to Supernova and Supernova Elite players last October that said significant changes were coming for 2016. And so I don't think it's any secret. I understand the cuts were larger than most players were expecting, but I don't think it should have been a surprise to anyone.
I guess the thing is, I don't think a lot of the outrage is at the amount of the cuts. I think, sure, it is some of it, but I think a lot of people, like Terrence said, are taking the cuts for 2016 that were promised to the Supernova Elites in 2015 as stars kind of going back on their word on what they were advertising. Now, I know you were saying that these emails were sent out, but I mean, if you're advertising it up there on the site saying, look, you're going to get this in 2016 if you sit in your house and grind, and look what happens when you get this, plus you get this in 2016. But you're not going to be able to reach everybody, I don't think, that, or maybe you feel you did, that is actually going for Supernova Elite 2015 to let them know that, hey, this might not be the way that it goes down, even though we said this.
Yeah, I mean, let's look exactly what's happened in the Supernova Elites. The FPP multiplier is effectively not changing. So currently you get a FPP multiplier of 5. And next year, the Stars coin multiplier is a little over 8. But with a value of 1 cent, that's essentially the same as the current multiplier of 5. So what's essentially changing for Supernova Elites next year is the stellar rewards and milestone rewards that are being removed. And in some ways, that's really what we did with the W Cube ticket last year, cutting a reward that you reach when hitting a milestone. And again, last year players didn't complain because I think they were expecting much worse last year, and this year the players are very vocal as it's a much larger cut.
Well, in that it was a 2-year this is sort of this implied 2-year contract, right? So I guess that was different a bit because that you're changing year over year what you're going to get as a reward, whether it's a ticket or different multipliers. But when you have this thing for 2016, it seems like that's the sticking point.
Well, the WCube ticket is you earned the WCube ticket when you reached 1 million VPPs, and you earn a $20,000 milestone bonus when you reach 1 million VPPs. So effectively, in both cases, we're removing that for the following year. So players, I guess in 2014. The player's argument would have been in 2015, I was expecting to be able to get a WCube ticket when I reached 1 million VPPs, but that was changed. And this year we're changing. Next year you're not going to get these milestone rewards.
Matthew, there was a screenshot that was posted by Donnie Sternansky. I'm sure you've read his post. I assume you've read his post. I guess I should ask.
I've read a lot of posts. Yes.
Okay, fair enough. The screenshot basically said that there was a it's from Star's website. It's not there anymore, so I just have to assume that he didn't Photoshop this. But it says that reaching Supernova. It advertises that reaching Supernova Elite coming from Bronze Stars worth $98,000. Reaching Supernova Elite coming from Supernova is $100,000, and continuing Supernova Elite is $124,000. And it's that third line that's no longer on the Pokerstars.com site. And I guess that's the one that people take issue with because as Adam said, it's sort of like an implied 2-year contract. If you do this in 2015, then you should get this in 2016. And now people will not be achieving that $124,000 number. I guess that's the issue, if you can comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, what is on the website says the rewards that you earn in 2015. So if you start the year 2015 and you reach Supernova Elite as a first-time Supernova Elite, these are your rewards. If you start 2015 as a continuing Supernova Elite from the previous year, then these are your rewards.
Okay. That was never meant to imply that those could be the rewards and going forward into 2016.
Yeah, and at the same time, we also say on the website the rewards can be changed at any time. So again, I understand the arguments, and I understand why players are upset. I think it's it's the magnitude, and players can be upset because they're taking a big hit on their income, and it's unfortunate, but these were changes that we needed to make.
Stars is doing quite well. People are saying, hey, Stars making tons of money still. There's this feeling that it's kind of a cash grab. We're going to make more money, take it from the high volume players. Some of them are skeptical that the money taken from them is going to be reinvested into bringing those players that we want to see into the ecosystem. And maybe the money's just going to go to the bottom line. What's sort of the reaction from Stars when you see people saying stuff like that?
Well, it's fully our intention to invest this money into growing poker. Growing poker requires long-term investments and short-term investments, right? But many long-term investments, they don't have the short-term reward. So these changes are going to give us the ability to invest in long-term return projects that we might not otherwise be able to invest in.
So we can look forward to a whole bunch of new fish coming into the system, I guess, is the hope?
Well, I can't discuss publicly all of our plans for 2016, and to be honest, some of those plans aren't even finalized yet, but I can run through some of the things that we are planning on doing. Number one, which I think is a big thing, is we're going to be investing more money in acquisition campaigns than we ever have before. Acquisition meaning primarily TV. We're increasing our overall promotional budget by a double-digit number. And when I mean double-digit, that's 10 million plus. These are promotions focused primarily on recreational players, and all that money pretty much goes directly into the poker economy. In R&D, we're planning on hiring over 100 new software developers. We've talked about, or we've hinted at some innovative products that we're working on, two in particular. Both look at poker in very different ways than anyone's ever done before. And in case you ask, because I've seen it on the forums, oh great, another spin and go product, and that isn't the case. One of these is an app. The other one is an innovative poker variant, and I obviously can't give away too much information on them, but both of these games I think will interest the core poker player, while also being innovative and new in its ability to reach new audiences. At least that's what we expect. So there's a lot of things going on, and the full intention is reinvesting this money to grow poker.
Getting back to the changes, Matthew, you mentioned a lot of people were saying, when are they going to come out? When are they come out? What was the problem with, and why did they come out so late? Given that it's 7-8 weeks away.
Yeah, I mean, I wish we would have been able to announce earlier. In June, I posted in 2+2 that we were aiming to announce in mid-October. And I remember when I made that post, Steve Day told me, Matthew, you might regret that. Things in this company take longer than you might expect sometimes. And he was right. Unfortunately, the analysis took a long time. You have to look at the latest trends. There was a lot of data to look at. And as you can imagine, with a change like this is a complete change, for the entire company. So it's not a decision that just the VIP club makes, right? It's something that many different people from many different departments in the company are looking at. And pretty much every year we need to wait until the end of the year and see the latest trends and make decisions for the following year. So we had hoped to announce in October, but it just didn't work out that way.
One of the things that Donnie Stern pointed out in his interview with Joey, and I thought he made a good point, was he said that the way that Stars, sort of the ecology of Stars is set up, in that when you're playing some of the lower stake games, the rake is relatively high in big blinds per 100. And if you play a lot, if you play a great deal, it's set up for people to grind and get high VIP statuses so they can get a large amount of that high rake back. And if you take that sort of out of the equation, you're left with these games that maybe are unbeatable. And I'm wondering how important that is. And if it's a big problem that Stars can look at and go, wait a sec, that might be too much of an imbalance.
Well, that's kind of what we talked about a little bit before. The first thing we want to do is level the playing field. And with a 30% cap rake back, long term, 45% next year for Supernova Elites, but effectively 30% top rake back. And then our Bronze Star players will be getting 8%. Now that gap is it's obviously squeezed and a lot lower, and that should give more players the ability to succeed in the games if the pricing is right for the game. So once we make these changes, we'll be looking at all the different game types, all the different stakes, seeing what's happening. These things, the games trend over time. If there's a game that's too hard, then the better players are going to leave it. And if there's games that are easy, players are going to flock to it. So we need to evaluate this over time. And as I said before, we do believe should be beatable, and we will be looking at our pricing, our effective pricing long term to make sure that all of our game types have that as part of the game.
One more thing from me. I've got, one thing that we haven't even talked about actually is the removal of benefits for games that occur, I believe, above 3-6 no limit.
5-10, yeah.
Or is it at 5-10 or above 5-10? It's starting at
5-10 and higher. Yeah.
Starting at 5-10 and starting at 10-20 fixed limit. So those players won't be achieving that. So the sort of thought is that you'll have obviously much fewer of these games going forward. So a couple questions I have on this. Some people have speculated that PokerStars might think about removing bigger games entirely because the rationale of this, of course, is that these games have really high payment processing costs, which we know they do. Stars pays money on every dollar that's deposited to various payment processors and stuff. So if the thought is that it's too expensive to reward people at these higher limits, then maybe they may consider getting rid of them altogether. So I guess I'll ask you that one first. Are there any?
That is really not the case at all. High stakes are an essential component of our offering. They're exciting for poker. Players strive to be high stakes players, and so that is just not the case. So let me explain really the reason we removed the VPPs for high stakes games. This was really the result of a long process where we looked at if we're going to make cuts to the VIP club, where can we make cuts that would least impact the games? And so we evaluated all the different game types and all the different stakes, and we looked at what percentage of the rewards, if you look at players, what percentage of their wins or losses are their rewards. So for example, if you got a guy in a high stake game and he loses $1,000 and he receives $80 in rewards, those rewards probably are not that engaging or motivating. And conversely, if you have a player winning $1,000, then receiving $80 in rewards is probably not the primary reason he's playing these games. So effectively, we're removing VPPs in these games because we effectively believe that players will still continue to play these games. If a fun player sits in a 5-10 game, I fully expect players will be seated at his table. So, this is not a move to get away from high stakes games at all. It's just we feel that rather than investing money to high stakes players, that it's better to invest that money in other ways.
But you would think that, or you would agree, think that it's a pretty big gamble, right? I understand that you guys have a lot of data and stuff that you can pour through and say, hey, what would happen? And you have, I'm sure, people that can analyze all this data. But you would have to think that there's some chance that a lot of the high stakes games that are going on, or not a lot, some percentage of the high stakes games that are happening now are going to go away in 2016 when players who play high volume and also like their rewards aren't going to be so happy to play 5-10. They might drop down to 3-6, make those games tougher, and those guys drop down to 2. You know what I mean? Like
the domino effect.
There's a domino effect there, where and it seems like it's a pretty big gamble. From this side of the data, I don't have access to it like you guys do, but it looks like it's a gamble for me from this side.
Well, the data shows otherwise for us. It shows that for most players, the rewards just aren't that important. Now, as I said before, I mean, if a fun player sits in a 5-10 game, the table's going to fill up, right? I mean, it just is because the stakes. When the stakes are so significant, players can win a lot of money if there's a fun player at the table. So, yes, there probably will be some 5-10 players that move to 3-6. I personally, I'm more worried about some of the limit games, and I think we'll be really paying close attention to some of those games. But this isn't a statement that says PokerStars doesn't want high stakes games. It really is the opposite. It's that we just don't feel that players are motivated by these rewards, and that we would rather invest those rewards in other ways to try to help grow poker. That's really what it's about.
Matthew, last week I talked about the FPP devaluation, and I believe I made a mistake. I said that it was a 25% devaluation from FPPs to Stars coins, but I think I made the transfer of that 25% at the highest VIP level. I think I might have been wrong. Can you correct me on that one?
Yeah, so let me explain really how it works, because I don't think all players understand. The FPPs today have different values depending on what you redeem your points for. So obviously, most people at 2+2, they associate FPPs as having a value of 0.016 because that's what Supernova players can get for their cash bonuses, and that's what players can get when they buy tournament tickets. But for a lot of our players, the rate is a lot lower. So if you buy a $10 cash bonus, the rate is only 0.01. So it costs 1,000 FPPs for a $10 bonus. So I guess the first thing is to ask, why are we doing this? And it's essentially because the current system is really quite unfair for recreational players who don't understand these differences, and they go out and buy cash bonuses, getting a 0.01 rate, and they're just not getting maximum value. So long term, this fixed rate should be simple to understand for everyone, and it's essentially benefiting the new players by ensuring everyone gets the same rate on the rewards. Now, I know a lot of players are saying, "Well, this is a money grab. You're lowering our value," and we spent a lot of time to try to implement this in the best way possible. So we've given everybody 2 months' notice. So all the players who understand the value is 0.016, they have 2 months to go and redeem their points. So if we're already seeing this this past week, a lot of Supernovas and are redeeming their points for their cash bonuses. And other statuses, if you're silver plus, you can go and buy all the tournament tickets you want, and you can use those all next year. So we fully have planned for all the players that are truly engaged. They're going to be redeeming all their points at the best rates. And then for all the other players, we're going to give them a 20% boost at the end of the year, which is effectively the cash bonus rate that a Gold Star player gets. I believe a Gold Star can buy a $75 bonus, and he gets a 0.012 rate. So a Gold Star, if he's sitting here today and he doesn't redeem his points, next year we'll boost his points by 20%, and he's effectively getting the same rate. And so the key thing here is communicating to players and trying to reach out to as many players as possible to let them know. We're sending out an email. I believe it goes out next week, and this is even if players say, "I don't want to receive marketing emails," we're overriding that, and we're sending them the information. We're going to be sending them a reminder at the end of December. And in December, we will have some pop-ups. So when you log in, we'll be communicating to players. So it's there are a lot of reasons why we wanted to do this, and we've really planned, I think, in a good way, exactly how to implement it.
So what you're saying then, I guess, if I please correct me if I understand this wrong, is that if you have a certain FPP balance depending on your status. You shouldn't necessarily actually make sure to redeem them all before December 31st. Actually, like, read the email and make sure you know what your options are, and you'll sort of, the email that you'll send out will sort of help people make better decisions as to sort of how to maximize their rewards.
That's correct. I mean, the best way to get maximum value is to buy tournament tickets, or if you're a Supernova, to buy a cash bonus. But all players, well, not all players, Silver Star Players Plus can get the tournament tickets and get the best value. If you're one of those players who buys a $10 bonus, then I recommend don't do it. Wait until January, and I'll take your 1,000 points. I'm going to give you 200 stars coin extra, so you'll have 1,200 stars coin. Use 1,000 of those to get your $10 bonus, and then you'll have 200 stars coin extra in your account.
Okay, Matthew, will there be any new benefits for players that you can talk about in the VIP Club for 2016?
There are, obviously everybody's looking at the cuts, and I understand that, rightfully so. But there are a few things that I feel like been overlooked. Some of these are I feel quite good for players. I know it's hard to argue this in the context of the overall changes, but there are some beneficial things that we are doing. Next year, Supernova, there's no longer maintenance requirements, and this is actually a big deal. Supernovas are required to earn 6,500 VPPs a month, or they lose their status if they don't do that for more than 2 months of the year. And every year we lose a lot of Supernovas. And so next year, this isn't going to happen. So if a player takes a break for a few months and then he comes back later in the year, he's still going to be getting his supernova value. We're increasing the VPP multipliers for some countries that currently we have different multipliers in different countries. So United Kingdom, Denmark, and Belgium, and there's one or two other small countries. We're aligning their VPP multipliers with the rest of the world. And another thing that is missed, we talked about VIP steps a few weeks ago, and there are the entire intention of VIP steps is to make the rewards more engaging for players. And even players listening to this PokerCast, I know most of them are skeptical, and it's like, I don't need VIP steps, but you'd be amazed at how many players fall just short of Silver Star or just short of Gold Star every month. I mean, there are literally thousands of players that'll have 2,420 VPPs at the end of the month, or 485 VPPs at the end of the month. And VIP Steps is going to send you there'll be a little nudge right on the table, little red nudge with an exclamation point saying, hey, you're close to achieving the next status and you're running out of time. And so, that's just a feature that I think is going to be good for players and good for PokerStars as well.
One of the things I want to ask you about is the third-party software discussion. This is obviously a separate issue, but Stars did mention in 2016 there'll be further restrictions on what people can use. Can you tell us anything about where that's going or how restrictive it's going to be?
I don't have the details of all that yet. It's going to be a process. We don't have like a fixed date where we're going to do this and a fixed date where we're going to do that. There's a lot of discussions. It's a complex topic, technically, and how to do these things and how to implement the policies once we have them. But as a general direction, as a philosophy, we want to level the playing field, and we want players to rely less on third-party software and try to help make the environment less predatory than it is now. But that's really all of the info I can really give right now. As I said, we really don't have the details yet.
Fair enough. Matthew, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Tough questions and some answers there. Hopefully some people will listen and and think more about some of the stuff that's going on, and maybe we can talk about more of it in the future if different things come up. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, guys. Thanks for giving me this opportunity. Really, there's to give our side of the story. I know all the answers aren't going to be satisfactory to players, but I did. Hopefully, I've explained a little better. Why we did some of the things and what direction we're heading, and I do think longer term this is going to be beneficial for online poker. And so they were tough questions, but I was glad I was able to be here and help shed some light on some of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's clear. I think one thing that everybody has to understand is even, I'm critical of a lot of these changes as much as the poker community, but I think one of the most important things, rather, to take away from this is that it's not always necessarily, okay, we're just trying to optimize revenue like right now. It's, that people like yourself and, the people that you work with are putting a lot of thought into this. So it's very tempting to sort of jump to the idea that, they're being an awful, evil company now and they used to be such a great company, and to sort of say, well, maybe at some point we have to take them at their word that they are sort of looking out for the long-term thing, whether you agree with the changes or not. And there's certainly, changes that I don't think are necessarily best, but you guys are paid the salaries for this, to figure out this kind of stuff, not me. Our job in the media, we just speculate and pull shit out of our asses and make wild guesses as to what things will happen. So definitely thank you for trying to be as candid as you can in talking about this stuff and presenting that side of the story.
Yeah, I mean it's tough because a lot of these changes impact a lot of players, but we're a public company, and the way you increase your stock price is to grow, and we want to grow poker, and that this is really what this is about. I think most players understand that we can't continue, online poker can't continue as it currently is long term. Now I understand players may be unhappy with how we did things and the timing of things and things like that, but this is about us trying to grow poker long term, and if we're successful at it, then the online poker benefits as a whole. So yet to be seen how that's going to happen, but we have big plans, and hopefully there'll be positive results.
Thank you very much, Matthew.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
No, thanks, Matthew, for joining us there. Tough questions.
Toughest job in poker this week.
No question. Hopefully, we'll continue the discussion and see how things shake out. I think a lot of people are still hopeful that there might be a change of heart on the one that I really had a problem with. Again, is the Supernova lead for 2016. I think I'm not the only one, but they seem to have a philosophical sort of different opinion on what constitutes warning to those people that were trying to make Supernova lead in 2015. But maybe there's people are holding out hope that they change their mind on that one thing, and who knows what will happen. Wouldn't be the first time that they had listened to the public and their players and responded. So we'll see what happens continuing down the line. Let's get to the Invitational. This is the Pokerstars Invitational for Pokercast listeners.
A little rakeback bonus.
This is a little one, yeah. Hopefully they don't get rid of this one. This is a $500 added for a $1.10 buy-in for our listeners, password protected. You'll find this in the private tab of the tournament's lobby each week, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. You're going to find this tournament. It's listed, I believe, under Pokercast there, and we usually do 2 weeks in advance. So we didn't do that last week. This week we're going to do on Sunday, November 15th. We are going to have a 9-max, no-limit hold'em tournament, Terrence's favorite.
For the main event?
This is, because we've got, we just went through the 9-max.
Could have made it pot limit in honor of the IPWOF induction.
The IPWOF, get it done that way. And
9-handed pot limit.
Wait for aces.
So you can shoot themselves.
Yeah. All right, so it's going to be 9-max, no-limit hold'em. We haven't done that for a while. The password is HBD Ross. Happy birthday, Ross.
It'll be the morning after my birthday.
The 14th is your birthday?
Yes.
What do you like, 19, 20, something like that?
25.
HBD Ross.
It's the first year I'm going to start feeling like a real adult.
Yeah.
You can rent a rental car.
You can now. That's
25
right.
is actually like the last, kind of American milestone. You can rent a
That's
rental
true.
car.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm 25. I don't even have a driver's license.
That's probably the place to start. HBD Ross, all one word, all lowercase. Sunday, November 22nd. That'll be the week after, for those who can't do the math. Head Up No Limit Hold'em is going to be the variant password Joey Ice Cube. I like it. That's what they're chanting on the rail of our guest Joe McKeehen tonight. Password Joey Ice Cube, all lowercase, all one word.
Yep. Joey. And you can hopefully you run as hot as he did in Heads Up.
Yeah, that is November 22nd. All right, so let's get to a few quick things. We were super long today, and of course we have still the mail from last week, more mail this week.
Let's just do an all mailbag show in like 4 days.
When are we going to do that? It just keeps getting put back. But we don't have as much to talk about in 4 days, so that'll be good. We should definitely get as much as we can.
It's been a busy couple weeks.
Let's get to some 140 or less.
It's 140 characters. That's it. I love hashtags. I love all of them.
Terrence Chan
needs more than 140 characters to express itself.
140 or less.
140 or less this week. Witless Protection is the name of the Twitter account at DocTAG. There's no personality at this final table. I want the septuagenarian Belgian to win. I just hope his prostate holds up. Ho! Anybody there? Is this thing on? Matt Glantz, is it appropriate from the rail to encourage players at the table to call the clock during incessant tanking? Terrence, thoughts on...
It is inappropriate.
It's totally inappropriate. Thank you. I thought we were going to have a problem with this one.
No, it is not appropriate to in any way tell people what to do.
Or alter the game.
In any variety that has anything to do with playing poker if you are railing.
Screaming at the TV, completely different.
Yes, you're allowed and encouraged to scream at the TV. You are allowed to take to Twitter and vent your frustration at everybody who will listen on Twitter. That is the level of bitching about tanking that is appropriate.
All right, Brian Horton has a question for you, Terrence. You ready?
Okay.
At ZBT Horton, you make the final table of the World Series of Poker main event. I'm able to prove to you that taking 90 seconds for every decision improves your EV by X percent. What percent do you need it to? What percent would you need to do it?
Okay, so basically, like, say I come in with an average stack, and my stack is worth like whatever 3 million. So, so if I take 97 seconds every decision, and say like X is 10% to do 330,000. Yeah, I mean, I probably would. I mean, I would say somewhere in the 10% range or something like that. The problem is that once you start doing that, then you start getting fewer hands per hour, which means that necessarily the percent, like the EV increase has to be lower because you're actually lowering the thing. And that's the thing that drives me crazy about tanking, is that it's all the best players in the world doing it. It's all like, I was, like I mentioned, I was at the table with David Benefield yesterday. He's like, don't all of these internet wizards realize that all this tanking is not in their best interest, and it just harms the game overall, and it's just slowing the game down. That's the thing that they're trying to they're stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. Is my thing when you're trying to like balance be incredibly balanced all the time with your tank time. And I think that's really what everybody's doing here, is they're just desperately trying to balance their tanking time, which is, it's nuts to me.
Yeah, because they can't think enough to act in real time.
Yeah, well, and it's the irony, of course, is that it is all the internet wizards who all act super quickly and are all trained to act super quickly, because that's what they do. They make millions and millions of decisions a year
right.
with less than 15 seconds.
All right, let's get to two. We got two quick hands on the Rosco report.
Okay, before we do that, I have a late submission to the 140 or less. Daniel Levine at MKNN sent me a haiku he wrote about last week's Rosco report.
Okay.
He says...
This is a Rosco report haiku?
Yeah. Oh. 5-handed at dawn. Turn trips against old man. Who can't lose? I do.
That is a very good haiku.
That's awesome.
And another one from Jamie Staples. I don't think I got to say this last week. He had a tweet that said...
He's got a haiku?
No, not a haiku. Just a tweet that says there's 55,000 people watching Bob Ross reruns on Twitch right now.
It kind of puts everything in perspective. I saw that. And you think, I got 12,000 viewers watching me play poker, and he signed some, lucrative endorsement deal. And Bob Ross reruns get 55,000 people watching. Bob Ross is awesome. I'm not going to say that.
I got sucked into it. I ended up watching him for like 45 minutes.
Pretty Little Clouds. That's
Pretty Little Clouds.
Yeah, Bob Ross is the best.
The chat was hilarious. It's just Twitch chat with Bob Ross.
So we used to watch, this is dating myself because Bob Ross obviously is from a long time. We used to get really high and watch Bob Ross, and it was the best. Bob Ross, when you're high, talking about Pretty Little Clouds is fantastic.
A giant vagina.
Yeah. Actually, it might have been 2005 Adam. I don't know if you got it.
This guy's just completely out to lunch.
I sound high there, actually. That's pretty true. All right, let's get to Ross Report.
Okay.
Good old Rosco. Sure glad he's all right.
Listen, boy, you gotta pick your spots good. You gotta make hay while the sun shines. Hey, good. Good. You dipstick!
It's time for a Rosco Report.
So happy with myself. I remembered to blast the volume down. I was so happy.
The air horn?
I was just jiving along to the whole thing, and then I was like, "Oh my god, it's coming!" And then I just mashed the keyboard.
All right.
What's the best part of that drop? What Terrence, for you? What makes you smile in that drop?
Probably you got to pick your spots because
really?
It seems so relevant
You gotta pick your
what
spots?
the Ross Report actually is.
You dipstick is mine. That brings me back to watching Duke's action. All right, give us some hands, Rosco.
All right,
we got to be quick about it.
Okay, these are some crazy hands I played from my last PLO session. Was actually last week. Been a little busy.
Okay.
So yeah, these aren't very finesse hands. They're just kind of like a backyard brawl.
Brawling in the streets?
Yeah,
in the PLO streets?
Yeah. So I'm on the button with 900-ish behind. The lady on my right is very spewy. She's just there for pure entertainment.
Let's get it in.
She's telling me that she's like, you can't fold, otherwise you don't have a chance to win. Yeah, she's right. Buying in for she's down to 300 or so. So she limps, and I raise to 20 on the button to isolate her with Queen 4-5 double suited.
No apology.
Oh yeah, sorry. Sorry, 2005. I gotta play the drop first, but I didn't raise under the gun.
That's true. All right.
Okay, so
you isolate her with Queen 4-5.
Yeah,
double suited.
Double suited. She. So the guy, I didn't realize he was so short, but he was in the big blind, and he was very tilted. I think he was on his third short buy, in very small amount of hands.
He's
so
just trying to get it in. Okay.
He shoves all in for 80.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So the lady just calls. Obviously, she's never folding. So I call too, and the flop is Jack 4 deuce. I think I have an overpair. I have a pair also. I think I had one.
PLO's great.
I love PLO. Yeah.
I think I had one backdoor flush draw. The lady checks to me. I think she would have bet with anything.
Okay. Flop is Jack 4 deuce rainbow, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I just pot it to put her all in too.
Okay. You have a pair and a pair.
And she's just like, whatever, and just puts her money in.
Okay.
So before I give you the results, what do you think?
I'm going to go with 10.
Oh, you're calling her hand?
5.
No, she's got ace 5, king 10, some weird gut shot with 2 overs or something.
Yeah. What
does she have?
The turn's a 6, the river is the deuce, pairs the board, my queens are good.
She doesn't show you?
I think they both had.
We were both about right.
Pretty sure they both had ace king high.
Ace king with a gutter or something like that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you win the pot?
I won the pot.
Wow.
And then I moved to the main game, which was also pretty wild.
Okay.
And this hand happened.
Okay.
So this is a very, very multi-way hand. So I have about 1,200 behind.
Okay.
I raise under the gun with Queen, Jack, 10, 9.
Oh, my favorite hand.
2 hearts.
Yeah.
For the Queen and the 10.
Apologize.
Oh, yeah.
5 Adam.
So you're sorry.
Yeah. Let me see here. What is that?
Under the gun, you don't raise. You limp in there.
It might have been a good idea, considering what happened.
Okay.
So I raise. It goes call. Button makes it 35.
That's fantastic.
For some reason.
Yeah.
Sweeten the pot. The small blind, the big blind obviously have to call. I call, and then everybody else calls.
Why don't you click it back? Should have just clicked.
I guess. I could have clicked it back. Nobody's folding.
Exactly.
It would just make the pot.
You got the best hand. I love these hands. Okay.
I got a good hand for the flop that came. So the pot is 245.
Wait. Okay, so he clicks it to 35. Small blind, big blind call. You call. How many to the... What are we?
7 players.
7 ways to the flop.
7 ways to the flop.
Flop is 5, 8, 10.
With 1 heart, yeah.
1 heart.
So I flop this super nut wrap.
You flop the
and
wrap.
A pair.
And a pair, yeah. That's important.
So the blinds check. I decide to lead into this flop for 200 into 245.
Okay, wait. I want to ask how deep everybody else is. You're 1,200.
There's some short stacks and there's some massive stacks, which
Okay.
is pretty normal for this game.
Okay.
There's a few people that have me covered. But, I can't really see any version of myself folding this hand.
No, I'm trying to figure out a way to get a bunch of chips in here.
Yeah.
Well, I assume that the 10 and the 5 aren't suited because you said you flopped a.
There was one.
10
It
and
was
5 rainbow.
Yeah, 10 and 5 rainbow.
Okay. I mean, because your like 13 card wrap isn't mind-blowingly awesome if there's a flush draw.
Right. No, for sure. No, I assumed it was
rainbow.
It was a rainbow board.
Yeah. So I bet.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we can all agree we want to get as much money in here as we can.
We would like to put chips.
So
in the
that's how do we do that?
Right? Yeah. So I bet. Guy on my left thinks goes all in. The small blind.
So wait, you bet 200 into 245.
Yeah. He goes all in for 450.
Okay.
The small blind cold calls for all in for about 400.
Okay.
The big blind, the lady from the other hand, she moved to my right again.
Oh.
She's just cold calls the 450.
Wow.
So I obviously want to, I guess, just peel this board pairs.
Wait, do you?
I don't know. I think
no, I'm getting my money in.
Yeah, but I mean, if somebody has a set, and I can.
Well, you're not folding if he's got a set.
If somebody has a set, say you want to run it twice.
You can't run it twice.
Can't run it twice there. But I mean,
well, it doesn't matter.
I'm just shoveling.
You're still equity fine against the set.
I'm shoveling everything.
You think so?
You have a 10 in your hand too. So
okay. Well, I ended up just calling because I was a little afraid of playing this massive pot, and if the board paired, I could have reevaluated, I guess.
Okay.
Anyways, the turn is really good, actually. It's deuce of hearts,
So
bringing me the flush draw.
8-5. The turn is the deuce of hearts, bringing a backdoor queen high flush draw for you.
Yes.
Okay. Pot now is 14-4.
The pot's 1445, side pot 150. I have 715 behind.
So 1600 in the middle. You have 715. Okay.
Yep. So the lady checks to me.
Is it just you two left with money?
Yeah.
And she
has me covered.
She has you covered. Okay.
Yeah.
So
she checks me, and I think
kind of a weird spot.
I think she's
on the turn.
I'm
right?
pretty sure she's drawing.
Why?
She could have so many hands.
Why
would you not think that your hand is smashing her?
Well, I don't think. I mean, I think it is, but she can still have equity.
No.
And there's a side
Terrence
pot.
is right. Equity. So you got all the equity. Yeah. Okay.
So, anyways, I think I should make her fold. Or at least get the money in.
You're certainly happy if she folds, and you're
happy if she calls.
Yeah.
So that's an excellent.
Might have
point.
like 2 pairs.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get the money in.
I jam on her, and she's just like, and she folds.
What?
Yeah. And the river brings me the nuts. It's the 9 of diamonds.
Wow. Gin.
Yeah. But another guy had a wrap too with the Queen Jack 9-6. So we split the pot, and the lady told me that she had Queen Jack also. I think she just had a bear.
She had a gutter?
She had a gutter. And she would have split it 3 ways, so I ended up forcing her out.
Wow.
So
you won the side pot.
The other guy who jammed had the lower open ender with the 8. So with the 6, 7,
8.
Yeah.
That's the thing about like loose multi-way PLO games that I
they draw for all their money to the second nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you're playing in like high stakes, I'm not going to pretend I know how to play like high stakes deep cash PLO, but it may be better to draw to like have inferior draws. But that's where you really get smashed in like these pots, is when you have these inferior draws.
And I was free rolling for the heart.
Oh, nice.
So I missed the heart. But yeah, so we ended up chopping up like about $900 in dead money.
Many monies.
Yeah. So that was
all right.
It's a pretty fun hand, I guess.
Made a crush.
I could have scooped it all with some two pairs, like a queen.
Yeah. So you're crushing now these days? What's going on down at the the PLO game?
I went on a bit of a downswing. I'm working my way out of it, but this month I'm up a decent, good win rate.
Keep it going.
Yep.
So we're gonna have to put the mail off to you. This has been like 3.5 hours or something crazy. So
Ross might not even be able to get home apparently at this hour. You guys are staying up late. So.
He's gonna walk home. It's only like 70
Imagine
miles.
that walk. I think it would take.
Ross's new drop will be 100 miles and walking.
It's about 40
It's a long way. We're not doing it. So we do have to do a mailbag show though. So I think we're gonna have to wipe everything clean for at least a segment and a half next show. Hopefully nothing happens between now and then, and we get to all the emails because there's lots.
Send in some mail, guys.
Send in some more mail. We can even make it a complete.
Send in some tweets. Those are faster.
Tweets are fun.
We get tweets, and priority goes to the cleverest mail, and the one that gives us the most compliments.
Indeed. If it starts off with a comment. All right, let's get to some thank yous. First, we had Mr. Shaun Deeb, who was our recent inductee to the IPWOF. Thanks to him for joining us and sitting out of his stud games. Doesn't like the stud games. We had 10 minutes with him, as long as it didn't involve the stud games, and then he had to get back for all the other mixed games. Joe McKeehen, we had the brand new champion, 2015 World Series of Poker champ with his gaudy bracelet that he does have. Ryan Laplante was joining us to talk a lot about that final table and break down some of the hands. Thank you to him. Matthew Hilger, of course, from joining us from Pokerstars to talk about all those changes that are going on. Terrence, thank you for joining us again from the lovely
always a pleasure.
Of
I'm not going to lie and say that I wish that I'm super happy to join you, because I wish I would just instead
final tabling
day 3 and building up stacks and stacks of chips. But
the
next best thing, chat with you all about some main events and all the changes to the VIP club and everything else going on, and Baby Hitler and all the other rest of the nonsense.
Yeah, indeed.
So happy to talk to you, and I'll be checking out the forums. So don't forget to post in the forums.
Please. I mean, I thought we were going to have a lot of reaction last week. We really didn't get much at all in the show thread, which is kind of depressing, but oh well. Please, maybe this week, if you haven't been there for a while.
Pretty good. This one should have a lot, I think,
hopefully.
with Pokerstars.
Indeed. Rosco, thanks to you for coming out to the suburbs again. Appreciate it much. And to you for listening to the show.
Okay.
We thank you every week for joining us. Wouldn't be doing this without you. Thanks so much. We will talk to you next week.
Yeah, trying to tournaments to min cash.
It to min.
Don't set your expectations too high now.
We're 3 away from the money, and I'm short stacked, so trying to squeeze it in.
Nice. All right, we ready to go?
Yep.
Thanks for joining us. The 2+2 Pokercast has been presented to you by the Pokerstars VIP Club.